My name is Barry Allen and I'm one of the fastest men alive. When I was a child, I saw my mother get killed by something impossible. My father went to prison for her murder. Then an accident made me the impossible. To the outside world, I'm an ordinary forensic scientist, but secretly I used my speed to fight crime and find other people like me. And one day, I'll find who killed my mother and get justice for my father. I am the Flash. Before the particle accelerator explosion, I had a very set belief of principles on how the world works. Rules like gravity kept people on the ground, the sun heated the planet, and theoretical elements were theoretical. After my parents' death, I gave up on my path in science, but after the particle accelerator explosion, my body changed in ways that I never imagined. It restarted my life and now I know what to do. I will use my speed to help Barry and everyone keep this city safe and make my parents proud. Meet Central City's newest speedster, Impulse. The Crimson Speedster. Flash versus Impulse, opposites meet. After the fight with Blackout and restoring power to the city, things went back to normal. As normal as they could get with Central City. No new metahumans had popped up, so it was just saving the city and stopping crime for Naruto and Barry. Since their fight with Blackout, Naruto and Barry were getting faster and stronger, and Naruto taught Barry the mass punch, which would help in the future. Other than that, it was work on the arc reactor components or training. Thanksgiving passed and Barry and Joe helped Naruto and Tsunade with making dinner for the kids and invited Cisco and Caitlin as well. Speaking of Tsunade, after learning that she was a metahuman, she spent some time at Star Labs to figure out her powers and to make sure that she was okay, and she was. Her powers were that she was able to channel her bioelectric energy to help grow and heal cells. Hyperhealing, as Cisco called it, and she was fine, although after using her powers, it used a lot of her energy and led to exhaustion and fatigue. But some rest, fluids, and food afterward and she would be fine. It was now December, which meant the holiday season was in full swings. Prepping for Christmas was going to be a nightmare for Tsunade and Shizune, and that Naruto was finally getting his college degree. Naruto was at school in the dean's office with Barry, Joe, Cisco, Caitlin, Dr. Wells, Shizune, Tsunade and Linda there as Naruto received his diploma. Naruto smiled in pride as the dean walked over and handed him his diploma. "Congratulations, Mr. Namikaze. You earned this," the dean said as Naruto smiled. "Thank you, sir," Naruto replied as he held his diploma in his hands. Naruto and his group walked out of the dean's office, and once they did, Cisco and Barry popped party confetti as everyone congratulated him. "Congrats, Naruto," Caitlin said as she hugged him and Naruto hugged back. "Thanks guys. It means a lot that you're all here," Naruto replied as they all smiled and congratulated him. "Of course, Naruto. And I'm sure you parents are extremely proud of you now," Dr. Wells said as Naruto smiled. "All right, now that Naruto finally has his diploma, let's go celebrate. We've got a huge party waiting for us back at the home." "Come on," Tsunade said as everyone left with Naruto's arm around Linda. "Congrats, Naruto," she said as Naruto smiled. "Thanks, Linda," Naruto replied as he kissed her. They went back to the shelter and enjoyed a great meal and celebrated Naruto finally getting his degree and finishing college. Later that night, Linda and Naruto spent the night out on the town and enjoyed themselves in more ways than one. With Naruto now free of college, he could use his time to work on the arc reactor, although Barry and Joe offered Naruto an intern position working as Barry's assistant. It was a coin toss if Naruto wanted to work at the police station. Currently, he was at the Star Labs Cortex working on some of the blueprints for the arc reactor, adjusting some dimensions of the reactor ring when Barry walked in with a new case. A metahuman who induces anger and cause the people at a bank to nearly kill each other. "Anger, hate, aggression," Dr. Wells said as he wheeled in. "A Jedi feels not these things," Cisco said in a Yoda voice as no one laughed. "Seriously, no one is feeling that quote. Try harder, Yoda," Naruto joked as Cisco chuckled. Everyone in the bank went total savage for, 5 minutes. And then they were fine again. Barry said. The amount of time it took him to empty the vault and leave. And when he left they went back to normal. Maybe his location to his target is tied to his power. Naruto suggested. Anger is a very powerful emotion. If this metahuman can engender irrational feelings of anger in his victims, he can do a lot of damage. Dr. Wells told them as Caitlin walked in. Detective West helped me get a copy of the CAT scans the hospital did on everyone at the bank. Caitlin said as she plugged in a flash drive of the brain scans. Take a look. Whoa, Naruto said as they saw the unusual activity in the subject's brain. Well, look at this, the emotion centers of the brain are still showing signs of being overwhelmed. Dr. Wells said. Particularly the area that controls executive function. That's the part of the brain that stops people from doing whatever random and potentially destructive thing that pops into their head. Caitlin said. How do you think the meta does it to them? Barry asked. That's the $500,000 question. Caitlin said. Well, it has to be something. Perhaps a vapor, the meta could produce some kind of gas or maybe something ocular. I mean to affect change in people that fast it would mean the meta's powers had a direct route to the brain. Naruto pointed out. Maybe Tsunade could help. She's got a wealth of knowledge on stuff like this. Good idea. We'll begin configuring a cell in the pipeline and preparing any kind of countermeasures when we know what we're dealing with. Dr. Wells said as everyone nodded. Tsunade came over to Star Labs to help on figuring out what happened with the people at the bank, and from what she could tell it wasn't anything vapor or the subjects inhaled or ingested. They kept working on figuring out the meta's powers and identity when Cisco picked up the CCPD moving on the tracer signal from the stolen money, so Naruto and Barry went as backup. Joe led the SWAT team to a storage warehouse where the signal from the tracer was coming through. The man who robbed the bank was moving the money from the bag into a box and found a tracer in a stack of hundreds. He made his way to the exit when Joe and 3 SWAT officers appeared and aimed their weapons at him. Freeze, Joe said as the man stopped. Put your hands up. The man took off his red-tinted sunglasses and did as he was told. Is there a problem, officer? He asked, in a smug tone. Certo, Joe said as SWAT officer Certo stepped forward with his shotgun pointed at the robber's back. Turn around. The man did as his eyes glowed red when he looked directly at Certo, who froze. Certo, what are you waiting for? Cuff him, Joe said as Certo turned around with his face full of anger. You don't tell me what to do, Certo said as he cocked his shotgun. Get down, Joe shouted as Certo fired. The buckshot from the shotgun fired as Barry and Naruto ran past and pushed the 2 other SWAT officers and Joe to the ground as the blast tore through some wood paneling behind them. The robber took off as Certo cocked his shotgun and stepped forward, ready to pump them all full of lead. Naruto was about to stop him when he saw 2 arrows hit Certo in the shoulders and sent him to the ground. Barry, Naruto, and Joe turned to see who saved them as it was the Arrow, the Starling City vigilante. Nice mask, the Arrow said as he fired a grapple arrow up to the ceiling and left. Cool, Naruto said as he saw the Arrow in action. Line break XXXXX. In the old natural gas substation at the edge of the industrial district of Central City, Felicity Smoke and John Diggle were there eating Big Belly Burger waiting for Oliver to return intervening at the SWAT raid. Most of the Arrow gear was set up there so the people at the hotel wouldn't raise questions. Dig ate some fries while Felicity drank her soda. It's kind of comforting to know that whatever city you go to, Big Belly Burger is always going to taste like Big Belly Burger. Felicity said. You mean full of grease and salt? Dig asked. I thought those were the secret ingredients. Felicity said as she heard Oliver's motorcycle closing in. Oliver's back. Then a yellow streak appeared in front of Dig and Felicity in a whoosh of air to reveal Barry in his flash suit with his mask down. Felicity was fine, but Dig freaked out and threw his cup of fries in the air in shock as he couldn't believe what he was seeing. By the way, I gave Oliver like a half-hour head start. Barry joked as he walked up to Dig and Felicity. Hi, Barry. Felicity greeted him with a smile. Hey, Felicity. How you doing, Dig? Barry asked as Dig just stared at Barry in shock. You're fast, Dig managed to say. Did you guys not tell him about me? Barry asked. Well, seeing is believing, or drooling. Felicity said as she and Barry chuckled as Oliver parked his bike and walked up to them. Hey, thanks for showing up back there, but I had it. Barry said. Oliver replied. What? I was getting ready to make my move. Barry told him. What move? The one to the morgue? Oliver asked. Wait, so what are you guys doing in Central City? Barry asked. Working a case. Suspicious homicide in Starling City where the murder weapon is a boomerang. Felicity said as she brought out the evidence bag showing the boomerang as Barry took it and began looking it over. Cool, Barry said as he noticed Oliver give him a look. I mean, awful. I found traces of iron oxide on it. I know it's a long shot, but Central City has the highest concentration of iron oxide in the country. Felicity said. Did you know Australian Aboriginals used boomerangs to hunt? Mainly on kangaroo, which is a surprisingly low-fat source of clears his throat. Oliver stopped Barry from the tangent. We were following up a lead when we heard the SWAT raid over the radio, and I thought that I would come by, watch you make your move. Oliver said as Barry chuckled. And I didn't know there was another speedster. Oh yeah, Impulse. He's my partner. You have Felicity and Dig. I have. Whoosh. Barry was cut off as they turned and saw a white and orange lightning trail appear next to Oliver's bike, and this shock caused Dig to throw his burger in the air. Naruto. Barry said. Huh. Knew I could find it. Hey, Barry. Naruto said as he pulled his mask down and walked over. Hey, Felicity. Hey, Naruto. Felicity replied with a smile as he walked over to them. Sorry for dropping in, but Barry wasn't back yet, so I wanted to see what was going on. Mr. Queen, it is an honor to meet you. Naruto said as he shook Oliver's hand. Right, Oliver said. Sorry, Oliver. Diggle, meet Naruto Namikaze aka Impulse. Naruto, meet John Diggle and Oliver Queen. Barry said. Naruto waved at Diggle. Hey, Naruto said as Diggle was stuck in shock. He's okay, Felicity said. Thanks for the help, Mr. Queen. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. Just Oliver is fine, Naruto. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Sorry. And don't worry about the whole secret identity thing. I'm really good at keeping secrets. Unlike the Flash over there. He spilled the beans on Felicity working with the Arrow when she came over a few months ago and told his crush object my name. Naruto said as Barry shrugged his shoulders. And again, I'm sorry. Barry replied as Oliver looked at Naruto. This is a secret only a select few can know. No one else can. Oliver told him as Naruto nodded. I swear I won't say a word. Naruto replied. I had a cousin got hit by lightning once. He just developed a stutter. Dick said as Barry shrugged his shoulders. So, what brought you guys to Central City? I figure you guys stay in Starling. Naruto said. They do, but they're here researching a murder and heard the SWAT raid over the radio. The team that was hit by a nasty metahuman who makes people angry. Barry told him. Cool. Felicity replied as Oliver looked at her. I mean, awful. Well, since you guys are here, how about we team up? I'll help you find your boomerang man, you can help us find our super rage-aholic. Barry said. We'd love to. Felicity said. No, we'll handle our business and head home. Oliver told him. The fastest way to find out everything we need to know about the boomerang is to 6-star labs on it. Felicity told him. Enough people know my secret identity as it is. Oliver told her as Felicity shrugged. Fine, I'll go. They already know who I am. You can drop me off and I will meet up with you later. Felicity said as Barry picked her up. How about I give you a lift? Barry said as he carried Felicity and super sped away. Oliver and Diggle looked at Naruto, who cleared his throat. Well, sorry for the abrupt exit, but I'll make sure Barry doesn't do anything stupid. It was nice to meet you, Mr. Queen. Mr. Diggle, Naruto said as he left as well. Man, that's not freaking you out? Dig asked as Oliver was calm. Let's go, Oliver said. Barry and Naruto super sped back to Star Labs and appeared in the Cortex as Barry put Felicity down. So, what did you think? Barry asked with a smile. I think, my shirt's on fire. Felicity shouted as she quickly took it off and threw it on the ground as Barry stomped it out. Felicity grabbed her handbag and held it to her chest as Cisco and Caitlin walked in. I'm glad I decided not to go braless. You guys remember Felicity? Barry asked to Caitlin and Cisco. I'll always remember this, Cisco said as Caitlin grabbed a Star Lab sweater. Hi, Felicity, it's so good to see you. What brings you back to Central City? Not Barry? Caitlin asked as Felicity put on the sweater. No, not Barry. This. Not happening. We looked down that road and we said no, thank you. Felicity said. I think they get it. Naruto interrupted her as Caitlin and Cisco chuckled. Actually, I'm here, because of this. Felicity said as she took out the boomerang. Awesome. What are the wings made of? Cisco asked as he went full gaga on the tech. Not sure. I'm thinking some sort of composite or high-density plastic. Felicity said. Reinforced with carbon fiber. Oh, that's weird. It almost feels like it's vibrating. Oh, I want to run some tests and I want to run them now. Cisco said as he and Felicity went to the lab. Hey, you guys come up with anything new on our meta? Barry asked. The officer who was affected tonight said he saw a flash of red before he lost control. I suspect the meta is inducing rage via the ocular nerve. Caitlin said. And did Joe get a name from the storage warehouse manager? Naruto asked. No, he said the manager lawyered up. Oh, and Dr. Wells wants to see you both. Caitlin said as Barry looked at Naruto who shrugged. They walked to the cosmic treadmill room where Dr. Wells and Joe were waiting. Oh, why does it feel like we've been called into the principal's office? Barry asked. The Starling City Vigilante. Joe said. He calls himself the Arrow now. Barry told him. Oh, does he, Flash? Joe asked. Okay, tense situation aside. What's the problem? Naruto asked. We don't trust him. Dr. Wells said. You guys don't even know him. Barry said. I know that he was wanted for murder in at least 12 different cases dating back 3 years. Joe said. I know there's been at least 2 major terrorist attacks in Starling since he became active. Dr. Wells said. All right, the cops are okay with him now. He doesn't kill people anymore. Barry said. And what about all the criminals he put arrows through? Those, what, don't count? Joe asked. Depends on the criminal. Naruto said as Barry looked at him. No, it doesn't work like that. Our justice system is designed to handle criminals. This guy is just a crazy vigilante who takes the law into his own hands. Joe said. Isn't that what Barry and I do? What you help us to do? The only difference I can see now is that you know us. He's willing to put his life on the line to help people who the police failed. He's a hero, Joe. Naruto said. You're a hero, Naruto. You offer protection, hope, light. What that man does is carry out a dark reckoning for his city. It is a brutal, violent vision of justice, one which we do not share. You truly think he's a hero, fine, so be it. But he's not one you should be looking up to. Dr. Wells told Naruto. Dr. Wells, I get everything you said. But we have no idea what the Arrow has gone through or what he's lost that made him want to try and keep his city safe. And until I see something that shows me that the Arrow doesn't help people, I'll keep my judgment of him the same as it is. Naruto said when they glass shattering in a loud bang. Naruto, Barry, and Joe ran into the cortex to see Caitlin running with the boomerang flying around and smashing through glass. Barry and Joe ducked as the boomerang flew over their heads and began to turn around when Naruto reached out and caught it before it could do any more damage. Cisco! Naruto shouted as Cisco and Felicity ran in. That's on me, that's my bad. Cisco said as Naruto looked at him. I want that arrow out of my city. Tonight. Joe said as he left. Barry put his suit down and left while Naruto handed Cisco the boomerang and decided to do a little of his own research into the mysterious homicide that brought the arrow to Central City. Line break XXXXX. The next morning, Barry got a text from Felicity saying to meet her and Oliver at Jitters. He walked in and saw Felicity and Oliver sitting at a table together. Hey, Barry greeted them. The bad guy that you're after, the one who robbed the bank, his name is Roy G. Bibelow. Oliver told him as Barry was both happy and confused. Thanks. How did you find that out? Barry asked as he noticed Oliver didn't answer right away. The guy's still alive, right? Oliver then looked at him as Barry quickly shut up. I'm just asking. I thought you didn't want to help. I'm not. It's just a name, Oliver said as Barry nodded. All right, Barry replied as Iris came over with their order. Hey, one non-fat latte, extra sugar for Felicity, and one coffee, black, for Oliver. I brewed you a fresh pot, Iris said as she was blushing a bit. Thank you, Oliver replied with a smile. Yeah, Barry. Can I talk to you for a second? Iris asked as Barry nodded and the two walked away. When they were out of earshot, she slapped his arm. Ow, what are you doing? Barry asked as Iris slapped his arm again. You did not tell me that you knew Oliver Queen, Iris said, extremely excited. I know Oliver Queen, Barry replied, not liking how Iris was gushing over Oliver. Oh, my God, he's even more handsome in person. And his arms are, like, twice the size of yours. Iris said. Technically, they're not twice the size. Barry corrected her. He's on my 3 list. Iris said. What's a 3 list? Barry asked. My list of 3 guys I'm allowed to cheat on Eddie with. You usually don't meet people on your list. Now here he is and I just cannot stop staring at him. Iris said as Barry was feeling jealous. He was pulled out of his jealous thought when he heard the door to Jitters open and saw Naruto walk in with a manila folder. Hey, Barry, Naruto said as Barry waved. Naruto looked around and saw Felicity and Oliver, so he walked over. Hey, Felicity, Naruto said as Felicity smiled. Mr. Queen. Oliver, Naruto. Like I said, Oliver is fine. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'm glad you're here because I think I got something you'll find interesting. Naruto said as he put the manila folder on the table. I thought Star Labs was still running tests on the boomerang. Felicity asked as Naruto nodded. There, but I got the dimensions and specs of the boomerang and it was enough to run my own search. So, when you showed us the boomerang, I wondered why someone would use it as a weapon. I mean, why not a gun or even knives? Naruto asked. Probably because bullets and knives are pretty common. A metal boomerang is more obscure and harder to track. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Exactly. But it's also a unique calling card that is telling. So, I used a little of Felicity's hacking know-how and some advice from my girlfriend and found some things I think can help you track down your killer, or should I say mercenary. Naruto said as he showed them dozens of articles from Australian and global newspaper articles detailing the murder rising political figures, corporate executives, and other high-value people. How did you get this? Oliver asked as he looked it over. I figured that the boomerang might be more of a clue than just being a weapon but also as a tell of the killer's character and background. Maybe Australian military and it became the signature of a soldier. Now, the military's records are sealed tight from hacking, so I approached it from another angle and used the information from your homicide and did a search for others. Naruto said. But there must be hundreds of thousands of deaths every day, how did that help? Felicity asked. My girlfriend's a reporter and she told me that for any of the murders they report, the slightest detail they can report that makes it more unusual or eye-catching for readers, they put it in. So, with a little computer know-how I got from Felicity, I managed to find a few bizarre or strange murders where the weapon was knife-like. After that, I did a quick hack into the morgue reports of those murders and found the cause of death on the wounds matched the boomerang. Naruto said as Oliver looked over the articles. I'm so proud, Felicity said like a proud mother as Naruto chuckled. I figured the guy must be Australian military, maybe special forces before he left. The earliest murders started in Australia a few years ago before moving throughout Russia and then the rest of Europe. Afterward, I had a hard time finding more as they were more spread out, but I figured it might be something that can help you. Maybe Felicity can find out something I can't. Naruto said as Oliver looked at Naruto. Thank you, Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Happy to help, Naruto replied as he walked away to get a cup of coffee. He's smart, Oliver said as Felicity smiled at Naruto. And someone who looks up to you, Felicity said as Oliver sighed. Why don't you want to help with Barry's case? Because Barry doesn't really want my help. He just thinks he does. And with Naruto here, he's got more than enough backup. Oliver said. Harrison Wells and Barry's cop foster dad both said you were dangerous and a bad influence. Barry and Naruto defended and vouched for you. Felicity said as Oliver looked at her. You're going to hawk me about this until I say yes, aren't you? Oliver asked. Oh, yeah, I'm a hawker. Felicity said as Oliver nodded, stood up and walked over to Barry. Okay, Oliver said as Barry was confused. Okay, what? Barry asked. Okay, we'll help you catch your bad guy. Oliver said. Great. Metahuman. Barry corrected him. I am not calling him that, Barry. Oliver said as Barry nodded. Partners. Barry asked with his hand out. Partners. Oliver replied as he shook his hand. Tell Naruto and meet me at the substation in 3 hours. Barry went over to talk to Naruto and tell him to meet Oliver and him at the substation in 3 hours. Barry went to work while Naruto went to grab lunch with Linda and after he'd go to the substation. Naruto arrived at the substation about 45 minutes ahead of time so he relaxed. He walked around and stretched a bit before he got bored so he passed the time by throwing punches and pretending to fight bad guys with kung fu knowledge which Naruto knew absolutely nothing of. He threw out some punches with a 3-punch combo, uppercut and then a spin kick. Not bad. Ah, Naruto shouted as he turned and saw Oliver standing there. Jesus, you scared the crap out of me. How long have you been waiting here? About 5 minutes watching you fight. Oliver said as Naruto was embarrassed. Well, this is awkward. Naruto said as he cleared his throat. You got here early. Oliver said. Yeah, kind of a habit of mine. What about you? Naruto asked. I was getting some stuff ready. Nice combo and spin kick, unrefined and sloppy but potential. Oliver said. I took some self-defense classes in college. And I like action movies. So, how are we going to catch Bibelo? Naruto asked. We're not here to catch Bibelo, we're here to train. Oliver said as Naruto was excited. Awesome, so what's the first step? Naruto asked. What exactly can you and Barry do? I imagine it just doesn't have to do with running fast. Oliver said. Well, we've broken the sound barrier but it's not just running fast. We also think really fast and our reflexes are the same. Plus, we heal fast which helps with the scrapes we've gotten in. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. And it probably has happened a lot. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Yeah, this whole hero thing is definitely a learning curve and there have been some close calls. Was it easy for you when you first became you? Naruto asked, trying to figure out the best way to say it as Oliver looked at him. No, but I had 5 years of training in a kill or be killed environment. And even now I'm still learning and training. A lesson you and Barry need to take to heart if you're going to continue this life. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Felicity told me a lot about some of the people and where you fought. Last month, you fought a man named Leonard Snart. Captain Cold, Naruto said. I'm not calling him that. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. You engaged him on a commuter train which he then derailed. Yeah, it was a trap. But we managed to save everyone. Naruto said as Oliver looked at him. But he got away. He knew you were coming and set a trap. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Yeah, something that has happened a few times since. But I've gotten better at it, and I don't run in blind anymore. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. Good. Never run in blind. Especially with you and Barry, you have all the time to case an environment and analyze the situation before you act. If you don't, people could get killed. Oliver said as he walked over to his bike as Naruto followed him. Naruto, you need to learn that there's a difference between having powers and having precision. Oliver walked over to his bike, grabbed his bow and an arrow. Living this life is dangerous, especially with the type of criminals you might be facing. It's not going to be enough to be fast, you'll also need to be smart. Discipline is key, Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Okay, Naruto said. Now I want you to run over there. Run at me and try to catch this arrow. Oliver said as Naruto nodded and he ran back about 10 meters. Ready. Naruto shouted as Oliver knocked his arrow. Ready. Oliver replied as Naruto ran straight at him and caught the arrow that Oliver shot. But then, two hidden crossbows shot Naruto in the back. ARH. Naruto shouted as he dropped the arrow. Oliver walked over to Naruto and pulled the arrows out. Arg. You said to catch your arrow. I did, but I also said there's a difference between powers and precision. Just because you think you can do something, your arrogance can get you killed. Discipline is key, Oliver said as Naruto nodded and hissed as his back stun. Got it, but I've never done stuff like this. It's not something I can just learn. You had years to train. Naruto said as he took off his jacket and saw the two holes. Which is why we're going to train. Oliver said as he grabbed a bag off his bike. He and Naruto walked back over to the substation. Discipline is something that is honed, just like any other muscle in your body. Felicity tells me that, like Barry, your expertise is in science. Yeah, I was a physics and engineering major in college and I've been studying those fields since I could read. Naruto said as Oliver put the bag down. And I assume that to get where you are now you studied for it. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Yeah, lots of long nights and headaches that put the arrow wound to shame. Naruto said as he rolled his shoulder. Almost. The same applies out in the field. You train your instincts and abilities till you understand them and your limitations. Discipline then becomes your second nature. Oliver said as he stood close to Naruto. Punch me. Excuse me? Naruto asked. Punch me. Oliver said as Naruto could tell he was serious. Okay. Naruto said as he winded up and punched Oliver, but Oliver grabbed and locked his arm, then threw Naruto over his shoulder and onto the ground hard. Ah, shit. Don't wind up for a punch, it makes you predictable and leaves you open. Oliver said as he helped Naruto to his feet. I know you can move faster than I can see, but you train at normal speed, the results apply when you move fast. Now, hit me. Naruto then threw out some jabs and punches as Oliver blocked them all and kicked Naruto back. Arg. Naruto grunted in pain as he threw another punch, but Oliver blocked and trapped his arm. Then Oliver did a sweep kick and knocked Naruto onto his back. Shit. Naruto said as he felt the wind get knocked out of him. Discipline comes through hard training. Don't give up. Oliver said as he held his hand out to Naruto, who nodded and grabbed it. He tried to throw Oliver over his shoulder, but Oliver did a reversal and put Naruto in a headlock. Ack. Naruto said as he tapped Oliver on the shoulder and he let him go. Now you're starting to understand. Think, anticipate, adapt. Use whatever you can for the situation. Oliver said as Naruto did his three-punch combo, uppercut, and spin kick, but Oliver blocked the punches, moved back to avoid the uppercut, and ducked under the kick. Oliver then threw out his own punches as Naruto managed to block them, but Oliver kicked out his leg and threw him over his shoulder. Damn. Naruto said as he stood up and rubbed his shoulder. You're starting to get the hang of it. Oliver said. Just a clarification. How is me getting my ass kicked help my discipline? Naruto asked. It's training. You've held your own so far, but if you really want to help and really make a difference out there, you need to understand something. Super speed and powers may keep you from getting hurt or killed, but soon you will encounter someone or something you can't handle. So, you need to keep training and get smarter, and until you do, despite your best intentions, you will do more harm than good. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. Right. Just wanted to check. Naruto said. Oliver walked over to his bag and grabbed 2 pairs of fighting sticks and a bottle of water. Drink. Oliver said as he tossed Naruto the bottle. Naruto took a long drink as he put the bottle down and Oliver handed him 2 fighting sticks. Now, this exercise helps train your reaction and ability to adapt in a fight. Just concentrate on the exercise. Oliver walked Naruto through the exercise as they began fighting with the sticks, and Naruto was slowly getting the hang of it. Don't get it wrong, Oliver still hit Naruto every now and then, but with his accelerated healing, the bruises would heal in an hour. And Naruto was determined to soak everything Oliver was telling him. Naruto and Oliver had been training for about an hour and he was getting better. Naruto and Oliver were sparring with the sticks as Naruto managed to parry one of Oliver's strikes and lashed out with his own downward strike, which Oliver blocked. Nice. Oliver said as Naruto relaxed and saw Barry walk up to them, so Oliver hit him across the face. 1. Ah, shit. What was that for? Naruto asked as Oliver grabbed Naruto's sticks. Now you learned the hard way about how distractions can get you in trouble or killed. Oliver said as Naruto rubbed his cheek and grabbed the water bottle. So, having fun? Barry asked as Naruto looked at him. Yeah, fun. Naruto replied as Oliver put the sticks away. You're late. Barry, how can you have super speed and still not be on time? Oliver asked as Barry chuckled nervously. Sorry, I guess the super tardiness kind of neutralizes it. Barry replied. So, how are we gonna catch Bibelo here? We're not here to catch Bibelo, we're here to train. Oliver said as Barry was surprised. Train like Rocky? Like I saw you hit Naruto? Barry asked as Oliver looked at him. I read your friend Iris' blog post on the Flash before it was taken down. And I visited all the crime scenes you fought at. Last month, you and Naruto took on a man named Leonard Snart. Oliver said. We call him Captain Cold. Barry replied with a smile. We can talk about you giving your enemies silly code names later. Oliver said. You mean like over coffee with Deathstroke and the Huntress? Barry joked while Oliver remained serious. The point is that you engaged Snart on a commuter train, which he derailed. Oliver told him. Okay, there may have been some damage, but I got the job done, I was the hero. Barry said. Barry, when you approach a new environment, do you case every inch of it? Oliver asked as Barry didn't answer. You could. You have the time. But you don't. Oliver walked over to his bike as Barry rolled his eyes and followed him. You just run in blind. There's a difference, Barry, between having powers and having precision. Oliver told him. Okay, when I came to you thinking about going out and helping people, you said I could be an inspiration. Barry said as they plus Naruto walked over to Oliver's bike where Oliver was about to give Barry the same lesson he gave Naruto. Living this life, well, it takes more than a mask. It takes discipline. And since you are probably as stubborn as I am, this is the best way to teach you. Oliver said. What is that for? Barry asked, pointing to Oliver's bow. You're gonna run over there, you're gonna come back at me, and you're gonna get hit with an arrow. Oliver said as Barry chuckled. No, I'm not. Barry said, confidently. Yeah, you are. Naruto said as Barry was smiled. Okay, fine. I will humor you. Barry said as he ran back 30 yards. Ready. Ready. Oliver said as he pulled the arrow back. Oliver released the arrow as Barry ran forward and caught it. Nice try. Barry said with a smile, thinking he got one over on Oliver when two crossbows places in the ground shot Barry in the back. Gah. Ah. You shot me. I heard you heal fast. Oliver said as he yanked them out and Barry yelled in pain. After the brief lesson of pain and Oliver lecturing Barry, Barry went back to the CCPD for an update on the case and to Star Labs while Naruto stayed with Oliver to train. Barry said they should head back, but Naruto said he'd be back later if they got a trace on Bibelo, and in the meantime, he'd train with Oliver. Oliver honed Naruto's skill, and with a lot of painful bruises and cuts, Naruto was slowly learning, and Oliver was impressed with Naruto's dedication. Line break XXXXX. The next morning, Naruto learned that Barry tried to go after Bibelo by himself and it led to Barry getting hit by Bibelo's powers and he got away. Barry wasn't affected, but Naruto hoped that after dealing with Girder, that was the end of Barry's solo act. Naruto went to the substation again in the afternoon to train with Oliver. Naruto and Oliver were training with the fighting sticks as Naruto's reaction and ability to adapt in a fight situation were getting better. Oliver still kicked his butt, but Naruto was getting there. Naruto took a break as Oliver called Barry to talk to him. Naruto sat on the ground, drinking some water, and wiping his face with a towel as Oliver waited. Thinking of new ways to embarrass me? Barry asked as Oliver turned around. I'm not trying to embarrass you, Barry, but you went after Bibelo last night alone and you lost him. Oliver said as Naruto stood up. I thought we agreed we were partners on this, Barry. What happened to us working together? Naruto asked. I didn't need a sidekick to help me take down one bad meta. Barry said, annoyed as Naruto looked at him. Sidekick. I thought we were partners. And it seems like you could have used my help seeing as Bibelo got away last night. Naruto said. Barry, he could have had a trap set up for you. You could have gotten killed. I'm fine. And to be honest, I didn't think you could take yourself away from your new teacher and his extremely painful and embarrassing training method. Barry said in an annoyed tone as Naruto was getting a little annoyed at how rude Barry was being. It was very off character. Barry, everything Oliver's been teaching you and I is to help us out there. He's got years of experience that we don't. It's stupid not to listen to him. Maybe you should, and last night's misstep wouldn't have happened. Naruto replied. And the great Oliver has never had a misstep? Barry asked. Of course, I've had missteps. Barry, I have been living this life for almost 8 years, encountering things that you can't even fathom, and I am still alive. Not because super speed kept me out of the ground. It was because I realized that I needed to keep learning, keep training, keep getting smarter, and until you get that, despite your best intentions, you will do more harm than good. Oliver told him as Barry was annoyed and pissed off. I finally see it. You're a little jealous about me, aren't you? I mean, a guy like you. Handsome, rich, can have any girls he wants. Jealousy's probably a new emotion for you, so you might be a little slow to get what it is that you're feeling. Barry said. That's your theory? Oliver asked. Absolutely. So you can train, lift weights, climb that stupid bar till your heart explodes, but you'll never be as fast as I am. You'll never be what I am. And that's gotta hurt your rock-hard pride, Ollie. Barry said as he got in Oliver's fast as Naruto tried to keep him back. Whoa, take it easy, Barry. Maybe we should just take a breath and calm down. Naruto said as Barry shoved Naruto's hands away. Get your hands off of me. Barry said as he got in Naruto's face. You may have my powers, but I'm the fastest man alive. And to be honest, I'm getting sick and tired of holding your hand and looking out for the kid in my group. You must think you're so better than me, don't you, Naruto? I mean, 2 brilliant scientists for parents, Dr. Wells is a mentor all your life, and now all that money and future Nobel Prize winning invention. Barry, I've never thought that. We're friends. Naruto said as Barry looked at him. We're not friends, teammates, or even partners. You're nothing compared to me. And honestly, I think you're just trying to make up for the shame you must have felt, abandoning everything your parents worked hard for before they died. At least I didn't quit. You. First sign of heartbreak and sadness, and you abandoned everything with your tail between your legs. Barry said as Oliver separated them. That's enough. Oliver said as Barry scoffed as Barry sped away. Oliver looked at Naruto, who was frozen in a mix of shock, anger, and shame. Oliver pat him on the shoulder and could tell Naruto was holding in either crying or shouting in anger. You okay? Oliver asked as Naruto shook his head no. No, but that can wait. Something's wrong with Barry, Naruto said. Yeah, something's definitely wrong, and I think it has to do with your meta. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. I'll head to Star Labs. Naruto said as he walked over and grabbed his jacket. Naruto. Oliver said as Naruto looked at him. I may not know you as well as Barry, but from what I've seen, there's no reason you should feel ashamed at all. Naruto nodded and super sped away and arrived at Star Labs to see everyone in the Cortex. Naruto, what's wrong? Caitlin asked. A lot, but that can wait because we've got a problem. It's Barry, Naruto said. What's wrong with Barry? Felicity asked. A major case of repressed anger with a touch of rudeness. He flipped out at me and the arrow. A lot of it repressed, but I think he's being affected by Bibelo's power. Naruto said. That's not good, Caitlin said. You can say that again. They heard Joe said as he walked in. He's been whammied. He was acting angry. It was scary. And his eyes, they glowed red. It's possible that his body is fighting off the effect, so it's hitting him slower. Caitlin said. When it comes to rage, that is not a good thing. The longer you suppress your emotions, the bigger the fallout. Naruto said, finishing Dr. Wells' train of thought. Considering what he can do, how do we even stop him? Joe asked. A cold gun would come in real handy right about now. Cisco said. Hey, Joe replied. I'm just saying. Cisco stated. I'll stop Barry. But we'll need to configure the pipeline to hold him until we figure out how to reverse the effects. Naruto said as Caitlin was worried. Naruto, are you ready for this? Caitlin asked as Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I'm not sure if I ever would be ready to fight a friend, but I'll do it. Naruto said. He won't do it alone. Fortunately, Ms. Smoke knows someone who can help. I think you should call Oliver Queen and tell him to get ready. Impulse is gonna need the arrow's help. Dr. Wells said as Joe, Cisco and Caitlin looked at Felicity, who was shocked that Dr. Wells knew. He really is a genius. Naruto said as he walked over to his suit and in a blur, was suited up. Cisco, find Barry and keep me updated. Dr. Wells, figure out a way to fix Barry. Naruto super sped out of Star Labs and raced over to the substation where Oliver was adjusting some trick arrows. Felicity texted me, Oliver said as he turned to see Naruto in his suit. I'm sorry Dr. Wells found out, but I could use some help making sure Barry doesn't hurt anyone. Or me. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. He got suited up in his green hoodie, hooked his quiver and put on his mask as Naruto handed him a spare earpiece. Let's go, Oliver said as he got on his bike and drove away. Naruto was about to run when his comm system beeped. Cisco, tell me you found him. Naruto said. We found him. He's downtown, intersection of Howard and Bleecker Street. And he's gone after Eddie. Cisco said as Naruto nodded. Got it. Did Dr. Wells figure something out? Naruto asked. He did. He and Joe are getting it set up. You ready, Impulse? Cisco asked as Naruto put his goggles on as his eyes flickered with lightning. Ready, Naruto said as he sped through the city towards the intersection. Barry in his flash suit attacked Eddie and threw him onto the street, completely consumed by his jealous rage. Eddie tried shooting him, but Barry just dodged the bullets. Eddie tried to tackle him, but Barry grabbed and threw him down the street. Eddie, Iris shouted. Who the hell are you, huh? You think you can just come along and have whatever you want? What gives you the right? Flash shouted. What the hell are you talking about? Eddie asked as he crawled away. What are you doing? What has happened to you? Iris asked the Flash. I feel fine. Flash replied as he walked over to Eddie. You are not fine, Iris shouted. How would you know? Because you write about me. You don't know me. You don't know who I am. You never did. Flash shouted as his eyes flashed red. I know that you have risked your life to help people, to save them. Someone who does that does not suddenly turn around and want to hurt people. Please. Iris begged as Barry's eyes glowed red again and he was too consumed with rage to think of mercy. He grabbed Eddie, ready to finish him when he was tackled from the side and sent tumbling down the street by Impulse. Impulse grabbed Eddie and ran him over to Iris. Iris hugged Eddie as she looked at Impulse, who turned to see the Flash getting back up. Go. I'll handle him, Impulse told them as Iris and Eddie ran back to her car and drove to the hospital. Naruto turned around to see Barry standing on his feet and extremely pissed off as he was seething with anger and his eyes kept flashing red. Flash, this isn't you. Bigelow's power is messing with your head. You need to calm down. Impulse shouted. Stop saying that. Flash shouted as he charged forward with a flurry of punches that Impulse blocked and he countered with a push kick that knocked him back. While Flash's attention was on Impulse, high tensile strength wires wrapped around his body and he was pulled away. Flash fell on his back and grunted in anger as he looked up to see the arrow had hooked him. The arrow shot another jettison arrow and a second series of wires wrapped around the Flash as Impulse grabbed the anchor. You need to calm down, Arrow said. And you two need to hold on, Flash said as he grabbed the wire and ran, dragging the arrow and Impulse across the cement before he stopped and they tumbled across the pavement. Crap, Impulse said as he felt the road rash. Flash walked up to them, ready to beat them senseless as the arrow fired two arrows that flew past the Flash and hit a garbage can. You missed, Flash said, smug. No, Arrow replied as the arrows exploded and sent the Flash flying away. Flash groaned as he stood up even more pissed off, but the arrow and Impulse were gone. He looked around when he was hit in the back of the shoulder with an arrow. 4,000 milligrams of horse tranquilizer. Affects even a speedster like you. Should be hitting you anytime now. Arrow said as the Flash slumped to his knees, sluggish and dizzy. He pulled the arrow out of his shoulder and tossed it to the ground. The Flash managed to stand on his feet and to Impulse's surprise, began vibrating his body at such high speeds that the green tranquilizer phased out of his body like a mist of vapor. That's new, Impulse said as he looked at Oliver. Hang back. Take shots when you see an opening, I'll handle him. You can do this. Just remember your training. Think, anticipate and adapt. Arrow said as he fired a grapple arrow to get a high vantage point. The Flash turned around to see Impulse and glared at him with soul-searing hate. All right, Flash. Time to really see who's faster. Impulse said as the two charged at each other. To Oliver and the team back at Star Labs watching on the security cameras, it looked like Naruto and Barry ran at each other and then a large vortex of spinning yellow, orange, and white lightning lit up the alley like a Christmas tree. That's what the fight looked like to a normal person, but to Impulse and Flash, they were in a no-holds-bar fight at super speed. Barry and Naruto were throwing out punches left and right as both dodged and landed solid hits against one another. They stopped moving at super speed as Naruto blocked Barry's wild haymaker and landed a right cross across the face. He then followed that up with a punch to the gut and then another cross to the face as Barry was knocked back. Barry growled as he threw out a series of speed punches that Naruto managed to block or evade. Naruto caught Barry's last punch, grabbed his arm, and then threw him over his shoulder like Oliver had done to him dozens of times in training. Whoa, wasn't expecting that, Caitlin said over the comms, watching the fight over the traffic cameras. She was quite shocked that Naruto managed to do that and it looked professional, or semi-professional. Dang, Naruto got some Bruce Lee moves. Cisco said. I guess all that training paid off. To be honest, I didn't think he'd do it. Not helpful, Cisco, Naruto said as he ducked under a wild haymaker and kicked Barry back. Oliver pressed a button on his bow and his bike down the alley fired two small arrows which Barry turned and caught. Fool me once, Flash said. Oliver then fired a gray metallic tipped arrow near Flash's foot and it exploded in a huge cloud of smoke. Impulse pressed a switch on his goggles and it turned to thermal mode and got a clear picture of Barry. It's time to end this, Naruto said as he super sped forward and hit Barry with a barrage of speed punches all over his body and Barry wasn't able to fight back because he was fighting smoke inhalation and no visible line of sight. Naruto focused and began vibrating his hands and decided to end the fight with an increased mass punch combo. He punched Barry across the face, uppercut him, knocking him off his feet and into the air and then punched him in the stomach and sent him flying 40 feet away, tumbling down the alley. Barry groaned in pain as he managed to use his arms and push himself up. Naruto ran up to him and grabbed him from behind, holding him still. Dr. Wells, now, Impulse shouted as a Star Labs van swerved into the alley and the side door opened up to reveal 8 large lights. The lights began flickering between different colors and spectrums of light. Barry looked at the lights and soon his eyes flickered red before they returned back to their normal color. Naruto felt Barry stop struggling so he let him go and Barry struggled to stand. Barry groaned in pain as he felt both the aches and injuries from his fight with Naruto and from the massive headache he got when he felt cured of Bibelo's powers. Oliver and everyone else waited to see what happened as Barry managed to turn around. Barry, you okay? Naruto asked as Barry looked at Naruto. Naruto, I'm sorry, Barry said before he fell back and passed out. Naruto knelt down as Joe got out of the car to check on Barry. Oliver used his grapple arrow and rappelled from the building to get to ground level. Is he okay? Arrow asked. Yeah, just passed out from the pain. He'll be fine with some rest, Naruto said as Joe picked Barry up and put him in the truck. Naruto turned and saw Oliver walk up to him. Thanks, Arrow, for everything. Don't mention it. You did good. While we saved Barry, we still have your metahuman to take care of. Still have anything left in the tank? Arrow asked as Naruto smirked. If not, that's why it's best to go in with some help, Naruto said as Oliver smirked. Naruto grabbed Oliver's shoulder. Cisco, do you have a location on Bibelo? Yeah, traffic cam got him heading south on Easton Street. Cisco said. Got it, Naruto said as he looked at Oliver. Hang on. Naruto raced through the city carrying Oliver on their way to stop Bibelo. Bibelo was driving a stolen car filled with the money he stole and was on his way out of the city. He was nearing the tunnel when one of his tires popped and his car began to swerve, so he hit the brakes and swerved to a stop. Bibelo got out of the car with his sunglasses on and saw the Starling City vigilante down the street with his bow. Bibelo grabbed the money and turned to leave when he felt someone tap him on the shoulder. He turned to see Naruto standing there in his suit with his goggles on and the lenses were tinted. It's over, Bibelo. The only place you're going is prison. Impulse said. Relax, there's no need to lose your head. Bibelo said as he took off his glasses and his eyes glowed red. He smirked and waited for Impulse to go homicidal when he noticed nothing happened. Impulse just stood there. What's going on? Oh, what's wrong? Impulse asked as Bibelo tried again but nothing. You should be going crazy right now. Bibelo said as he tried again but the result was the same as before. Oh, you mean why I'm not frothing at the mouth and going into a rage-induced frenzy? Impulse asked as he tapped his goggles. Tinted lenses. A little thing I made for running when it's super sunny outside. And it just so happened to be great at negating your powers. Impulse then ran around Bibelo in a blur and stopped to reveal Bibelo was handcuffed and a blindfold was tied around his eyes. It's over, Bibelo. You won't be hurting anyone anymore. Impulse said as Oliver walked up. Nicely done, Impulse. Arrow said as Impulse smirked. Like you said, never go in without a plan. Impulse said as he tapped his goggles and Oliver chuckled. Line break XXXXX. Naruto and Oliver took Bibelo back to Star Labs where Cisco had a cell prepped for him with a reflective glass surface so Bibelo's powers wouldn't work on anyone who went to see him. You think this will stop me? I'll make you tear each other to pieces. You'll all die. Bibelo shouted as Cisco closed the cell door and walked away. Blah blah blah. No prison can hold me. Heard it all before, pal. Adios, Prism. Cisco said as they walked away. I liked Rainbow Raider. Caitlin told him. Okay, you don't get to pick the names. Cisco told her as Oliver looked around the pipeline and was impressed. I have a prison like this. Mine's on a nearly inhospitable island in the North China Sea, but this works too. Oliver said. We can't all have islands. And when it comes to dealing with powers, this is best. Naruto told him as they walked to the cortex as Barry hung back, thinking of how to apologize. Team Flash gathered in the cortex so Oliver could talk to them before they leave. My identity is a closely guarded secret known only to a few. If it were to get out, it would endanger my family, my friends and embolden my enemies to attack me through them. Oliver said as Felicity walked up to him. What Oliver is trying to say is that Oliver had a lovely time meeting all of you, getting to know all of you, and he can't wait to do it again soon. Felicity said with a smile. Right, Oliver said. You know what, it didn't sound like what he was saying. Cisco said as Naruto pat his shoulder and walked up to Oliver. Don't worry, your secret's safe with us. I swear my life on it. Naruto said as he held his hand out. It was an honor working with you. And thank you, for everything. Oliver smiled and shook Naruto's hand. Keep up your training, and you'll go on to do amazing things. I can tell, Oliver said as Naruto smiled. Joe walked up to Oliver and held his hand out. I may not agree with your methods, but Naruto's right. I shouldn't judge someone until I know them. Thank you, Joe said as Oliver shook his hand. You're welcome, Oliver said as Cisco grabbed a thumb drive from the computer and tossed it to Naruto. Everything we could get on the boomerang. Hopefully this will help, Naruto said as Oliver smiled and took the drive. Thanks, Naruto, Oliver said. And should you ever need an upgrade or technical support, just call. Naruto said as Oliver nodded while Felicity walked over to Caitlin. If I gave you a DNA strand that I couldn't fully break down, do you think you could isolate the genetic markers for me? Felicity asked. Sure, what's the sample from? Caitlin asked. The Canary's murder, Felicity said as Caitlin nodded. Of course, Caitlin said as she hugged Felicity. Mr. Queen, Dr. Wells said as he strolled up to him. I met your father once. A charity event. One of things we spoke of was you. I think he'd be very proud of the man you've become. Thank you. And please, call me Oliver. Oliver said as he shook Dr. Wells' hand, and he and Felicity left as Barry walked in. Joe noticed Barry walk in and saw him walk over to Naruto, who was looking at his suit. Naruto, Barry said as Naruto turned. Hey, Barry, Naruto replied as Barry rubbed the back of his head, nervously. Look, I don't think there's anything I can say to tell you how sorry I am for how I acted or what I said, but I'm sorry. Barry said as Naruto nodded. It's all right. Bivolo whammied you, it's fine. Although, you might want to see a therapist for all that anger you had bottled up. Naruto joked as Barry chuckled. No, I think I got it all out. Barry said as he sat down in a chair as Naruto smirked. Barry rubbed his face and exhaled. But I'm really sorry to all of you of how I acted and that you had to stop me. It's fine, Barry. Really, Caitlin said. No problem, dude. Part of the job, Cisco said. And don't worry, Barry. We'll get your dad out. Joe said as Barry nodded. Just don't make this a habit, Mr. Allen. Dr. Wells said as Barry nodded. Actually, I think I have a way to teach Barry never to run off on his own again. Naruto said with a smile as everyone looked at him. What do you mean? Joe asked. Well, Joe, all is forgiven with Barry, but I think a nice reminder of what can happen should he go rogue again would be a nice deterrent from something like this happening in the future. Naruto said as he held his hands behind his back with a delightful smile. What kind of deterrent? Caitlin asked, suspicious. Well, me knocking your butt around the alley was fun, but I believe something else is best suited to make you remember that this is a team effort. So, I will submit you to 8 of the most embarrassing and soul-crushing pranks I can think of. Naruto said as he smiled at Barry like sociopath would. Oh no, Dr. Wells said. Really, pranks? Like whoopee cushions and fart spray? Cisco asked, thinking Naruto was joking. Oh, believe me, Cisco. When it comes to pranks, Naruto takes it to a whole different level. An artist level, really. Dr. Wells said as Naruto smiled and bowed dramatically. Thank you, Dr. Wells. While I was in middle school, let's say I had a bit of a devious side when it comes to getting equal with people who were bullies. So, to make sure that Barry won't do something stupid again, I believe 8 embarrassing, soul-crushing pranks shall suffice as a nice reminder. Naruto said. Naruto, don't you think that's a little juvenile? Caitlin said. It's either this or we zap him every time he goes off on his own. Naruto said as Barry chuckled. Fine, pranks it is. So, when does this prank assault start? Barry asked, amused at how childish Naruto was acting when he noticed Naruto's smirk. Oh, it started about 5 minutes ago. Naruto said as Barry stood up but couldn't. He tried to stand up but his butt wouldn't leave the chair. He managed to get on his feet but the chair came with him, completely glued to his pants. Joe, Cisco, and Caitlin chuckled as they saw Naruto had super glued Barry's butt to the chair. Laughing, super glue butt to the chair? Joe asked as Naruto smirked. He super sped to the lab and came back holding a can of Gorilla Glue. Please, Gorilla Glue, Joe. Naruto said with a smile as Barry looked annoyed. All right, nice shot. Barry said as he managed to super speed to the med lab and came back wearing some Star Lab sweatpants since his jeans were gorilla glued to the chair. 7 more, how hard can this be? I'll see you guys later. Barry walked out of the cortex, scratching his butt as Naruto chuckled while everyone looked at him. He pulled out a packet from his pocket, showing extra strength itching powder. Number 2 for the day. Naruto said with a smirk. Wow, you plan ahead. Cisco said as Naruto chuckled. The first part of a prank war is to think 3 steps ahead. And speaking of number 3, Naruto said as he waited and everyone heard the sound of water hitting the ground and Barry screaming. Ah, Naruto. Barry shouted as Naruto sighed happily. Number 3. Naruto said as everyone chuckled but were also a bit frightened as this devious side of Naruto. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. Geez, I never knew Naruto could be scary. Cisco said. Believe me, Cisco, you've seen nothing yet. Dr. Wells said. Prank number 4. Joe was at CCPD talking to the desk sergeant when he heard some police officers laughing. He turned and on reflex began laughing as well as he saw Barry disembark the elevator dressed normally and with his bag, scratching his legs, but the biggest thing was that Barry's hair was dyed bright pink. Barry grumbled as he walked into the CCPD with his normal brown hair dyed a nice bright pink like you would see with strawberry ice cream. Morning, Joe, Barry said as Joe chuckled. Hey, Bar, Naruto got you again, didn't he? Joe asked. Yeah, he must have laced my shampoo with this stuff. I just hope it goes away soon. Barry said as he touched his hair and scratched his thigh with his other hand. Alan, where's the report for? Captain Singh was cut off as he looked at Barry. What on earth happened to you? I found myself on the bad end of a prankster. Barry said. Well, get back to work. And if you need directions, the Lollipop Guild is down the yellow brick road. Singh joked as Joe and everyone laughed as Barry's cheeks turned red in embarrassment as he quickly went to his lab. Prank number 5. Barry was working in his lab, scratching his legs because of the itching powder Naruto put in those sweatpants. As he was working, he felt some water hit his hand. He was confused and looked up to see something slightly sticking out from behind the ceiling light. Barry stood up and got a better look and saw a slightly tilted bucket of water. Barry chuckled as he stood on his chair to remove the bucket before it soaked him and got his workstation all wet. He removed the bucket and got down from the chair, but as soon as he got on the ground, he slipped on something slippery and fell on his back. The bucket of water that Barry took down to prevent himself from getting wet fell on him and soaked him in water. Barry groaned as he spat some water out of his mouth and noticed there was something attached to the bottom of his chair. It was a device that released car wax as soon as Barry removed the bucket. Naruto thought ahead. Damn it, Barry said as he got up, soaked in water, but at least his workstation was dry. Barry walked over to his Foot Locker to get a change of clothes, but as soon as he opened it, he was hit in the face by a super fast flour bomb and had white flour all over his body. Barry coughed as the flour mixed with the water and began to form a paste on his body. Barry noticed a camera and a note on the flour bomb delivery system, and it read, "This two-parter prank still counts as one. 3 more to go." And there was small drawing of a smiling Naruto doing the peace sign as Barry grumbled. This is going to suck, Barry said to himself. Prank number 6. Naruto, Cisco, Linda, and Caitlin were at Jitter for a coffee break as Iris brought over their order consisting of a cappuccino, 1 espresso, a dark coffee, and a hazelnut roasted blend. The door to Jitter's opened and they heard gasps and people snickering. Iris, Caitlin, Cisco, and Naruto looked and Naruto began chuckling with a grin. Cisco and Linda began snickering while Caitlin and Iris gasped in shock. Barry walked into Jitter, still with his pink hair, but his entire face was now colored dark blue, like Barry was a member of the Blue Man Group. Barry sighed as he slowly walked over to Naruto and the others as Naruto chuckled and took a picture with his phone. Hey, Barry, feeling a little blue? Naruto joked as Cisco and Linda laughed as Barry was blushing in embarrassment. Oh my god, Barry. What happened? Iris asked. I'm on the wrong side of prank assault by Naruto, Barry said as Iris looked at Naruto, who snickered as he sipped his coffee. Naruto, don't you think these pranks are a little childish? Iris asked as Naruto smiled. Maybe, but they are great for getting a point across for Barry to learn, Naruto said. Sure. So, tough it out, Barry. It's not that bad. I mean, how many jokes can people make about you being blue? Da ba da da ba die. Linda joked as Naruto and Cisco laughed, and even Iris and Caitlin chuckled at Linda's joke. Ha ha, very funny, Barry said as he walked away. Barry, don't worry, that stuff should wash out by tonight, Naruto said as Barry nodded. But before you go, can you tell me how smurfing mad you are right now? Cisco said as the dam broke and Naruto, Cisco, Linda, Caitlin, and Iris laughed as Barry left. And that's 6, Naruto said. Prank number 7. The next day, the blue paint covering Barry's face had washed away and the pink in his hair was still there, but the tips of his hair showed signs of their normal color, so there was some good news. But after the Gorilla Glue, the itching powder, the water dunking, the pink hair dye, the water and flower bomb combo and the blue face, Barry looked everywhere for potential traps and pranks. Naruto was no joke when it came to this punishment, and there were 2 pranks left. Barry was in his lab, working on some forensic evidence and looking over his shoulder or at the door constantly to check if something was going on. Barry heard some footsteps and got nervous when he saw Joe walk in with some Big Belly burger. "Hey, bar, lunch." "Oh, thanks Joe," Barry said as Joe walked over and put the bags down. Barry reached in and looked at the food cautiously, something Joe noticed. "Relax, bar. I went to Big Belly Burger and watched them make it fresh." "No way Naruto messed with it," Joe said as Barry smiled. "Awesome," Barry said as he took out of the fries and burger. He took a big bite out of the burger and then ate some fries and relished in the awesome taste. He swallowed and took another bite of his burger, when his mouth began to burn. "Ha! Ah!" Barry shouted as he quickly spit the burger out into the trash and took a long drink of soda to quell the fire in his mouth. "Barry, what's wrong?" Joe asked as he saw Barry drink his whole soda and exhaled in relief, but then his eyes went wide. "Ah!" Barry shouted as he ran over to the sink, turned it on and began chugging water like his life depended on it. Joe grabbed Barry's burger and looked at the patty and saw it was stuffed with dark red chili peppers. He took a sniff and he pulled away on reflex because of the strong smell that easily cleared his sinuses. He then sniffed Barry's soda and smelled the telltale aroma of hot sauce. Barry jugged at least a gallon of water before he stopped, and the pain had lessened, but his mouth was on fire and he felt like he had a flaming tire in his stomach. "Ah, that hurt," Barry said. "I don't understand. I watched them make it. This wasn't stuffed when I got it and there wasn't hot sauce in your soda," Joe said as Barry groaned as he held his stomach in pain. "Tell that to my stomach," Barry said as heard his phone chime, indicating a text. He looked and saw it was Naruto. "He got me again." "What?" Joe asked as Barry showed him. "I figured Joe arrived at CCPD and gave you your lunch by now. When he walked over to get the ketchup, the split second he put the bags on the counter to get your condiments, I swapped your lunch with something a little spicier. Ghost chili pepper burger with a habanero hot sauce soda. That's 7 down, 1 more to go. Enjoy the burn. Good luck." "Dang, Naruto must have moved fast," Joe said. "That's 7, 1 more to go," Barry said. Prank number 8. Naruto was at Star Labs in the Cortex, working in the engineering lab on a little project of his. The arc reactor was moving on schedule and they had begun building parts of the reactor ring near the defunct particle accelerator. Thanks to Naruto's super speed, Dr. Wells' genius and Cisco's ingenuity, they had begun building the reactor. It was small and tedious work to begin with, as they were currently building the interface unit, power converter, control module, and the outer particle shielding and support out of the tungsten cobalt resin. Once they built the outer supports and control module, they'd get to work on the reactor chamber and palladium ring, and then it would take time to make sure the whole thing interfaced properly. Once that was done, they would put all of it together and see it if worked. Luckily, with Naruto's super speed, what would normally take years could get accomplished in half the time. If they managed to build everything and got the calculations right, Naruto could build a lot of it in the span of a few days. So, now he was working on a little side project with Cisco, which was making new and interesting trick arrows for Oliver. Naruto went to Cisco about the idea and he was giddy to help, so they got to work. Naruto was at a workbench, screwing the safety pin onto a new explosive arrow while Cisco worked on the wires for a new grapple and restricting arrow. Caitlin then walked in with a notepad. "Hey, guys," Caitlin said. "Hey, Caitlin," Naruto said as he finished the arrow and put it in foam padding in a metal case. "What are you guys working on?" Caitlin asked. "New trick arrows for Oliver. Naruto asked me to help and he knew I wouldn't say no," Cisco said as Naruto smiled. "And aren't we having fun?" Naruto asked as Cisco smiled. "Of course. I'm finished with the wire for the grapple arrow and I got an idea: phosphorus arrow. How's that sound? Cisco asked as Naruto nodded. Sounds cool. Oh, speaking of finishing, I believe it's time to watch my final prank on Barry. Naruto said as he walked over to the main computers to bring up some video footage. What did you do? Cisco asked as Naruto brought up video footage of Barry at his apartment eating some lunch. How did you get a camera in Barry's apartment? Caitlin asked as Naruto smiled. I took an old one from downstairs and hid it in the corner of his living room. Now this one is going to be good but a little messy. Naruto said. Messy how? Caitlin asked. Well, I had to be careful in thinking of my final prank as I affected Barry, physically as well as gave him a stomach burn that probably won't be going away anytime soon, so I figured why not do something with a little tribute to my youth. When I was a kid, I used to pull pranks where I hid vials of foam in a bully's locker so when he opened it, Foam City. Cisco said as Naruto nodded. Now, while I could have easily done the same and put it in one of the ceiling tiles in Barry's apartment, I don't want to cost him his home. So, I improvised with some large soda bottles aimed at an angle. Naruto said as he showed them a drawing of his prank. It was a crude drawing of Barry in his apartment, the placement of the camera and 2 different soda bottles of foam. And the foam? Caitlin asked. A mixture of hydrogen peroxide, potassium iodide, some Palmolive dish soap and little food coloring for fun. I took some equipment from the lab to set up the bottles and the reaction will start right now. Naruto said as he pressed a button on the computer. They waited for a few seconds when suddenly, a stream of red and yellow foam flew out of the bottles at the side of Barry's apartment and hit him. Barry was hit by surprise and fell to the ground as the foam expanded and covered him, the floor, and his table. True to Naruto's word, there was only enough foam to cover Barry and his floor. It didn't hit his furniture, his kitchen, or his TV. Barry struggled to stand up as he wiped the foam from his face and body. Chuckling, and that's 8. Naruto said as he happily shut the camera off. He then sent a text to Barry saying that he put some cleaning supplies in Barry's closet so the foam wouldn't stain his apartment. Please tell me you recorded that. Cisco asked, chuckling. Of course. Now should we post to YouTube? Naruto asked. Naruto, you've embarrassed Barry enough. Caitlin told him as he nodded. Fine. Ruin the most fun I've had in years. Naruto said as he leaned back in his chair with a happy sigh. Oh, the memories these days have brought. Remind me not to piss you off, Naruto. Dr. Wells was right. You take pranking to another level. Cisco said. I wasn't called the king of pranks for a reason. But I took it easy on Barry. Trust me, I had some even more dastardly and embarrassing pranks in my arsenal, but I didn't want to be a dick. Naruto said as Caitlin smiled. I'm proud you showed some restraint. Caitlin said as Naruto smiled. Although, I think the foam was a little much. Oh, relax. The foam is harmless and he could actually clean with it now. It'll turn to water in a few minutes. It's not like it would harden, Naruto said as he got an idea. Cisco and Caitlin noticed Naruto stop talking and seemed to be thinking hard on something. Naruto. You still there? Cisco said as he waved his hand in front of Naruto's face. I think I've got an idea. Cisco, Caitlin, I'm gonna need your help. Naruto said. Help with what? Caitlin asked. I think I just thought of a new arrow for Oliver. Naruto said as they went to the lab. Line break XXXXX. A week had passed since Oliver and his team had come to Starling City, so Caitlin, Cisco, and Naruto decided to go see Felicity and the others in Starling City. Part to get the DNA sample that Felicity needed testing, and the other part to give Oliver new trick arrows and get a peek at his base of operations. They walked into Queen Industries, or as it was now Palmer Technologies, to go see Felicity, who was working in her office. I'm almost done here, Jerry. You should have gone home hours ago. Felicity said as she turned to see Caitlin, Cisco and Naruto holding a metal, guitar-length case and carrying a backpack. Who's Jerry? Caitlin asked. This place is bigger than my apartment. Cisco said as he looked around her office. What are you guys doing here? Felicity asked. You asked us to analyze the DNA off the arrow that killed Sarah. Caitlin said. I was just gonna mail you the sample. Felicity said. We had some vacation days lined up. Caitlin said. We want to see the arrow cave. Cisco said, eager and waiting to see it. We don't call it that. Felicity said as she walked to the door. Ever. I want to see the toys. I need to see the toys. Cisco said, practically begging. Do you guys have an arrow mobile? Felicity relented and escorted them to the cave, which was actually more like a bunker underneath Oliver's former club, Verdant. They walked down the stairs and saw Oliver training with a young man, probably around Naruto's age if not younger. Oliver, we have some guests. Felicity said as Oliver looked. Hey, Oliver. Sorry to drop in like this. Naruto said. Did you guys need something? Oliver asked. We kind of came to get the DNA sample you needed us to identify. Naruto said. This place is awesome. Cisco said as he began looking around. And part for that. Hey, I'm Naruto. Naruto said as he shook the guy's hand. Roy Harper. Roy said. Oh, so this is Arsenal. Nice to meet you, one partner to another. The name's Impulse. Naruto said smiling as Roy nodded. Cool. Roy replied. That's Caitlin Snow, our resident doctor, and Mr. Curious over there is Cisco Ramon. Naruto said as Cisco walked over to the assortment or arrowheads on the table. Don't touch that, Oliver said as Cisco pulled away. He then touched some of Oliver's prepared arrowheads. That. It's a jettisoning arrow. Uses compressed CO2 to fire high tensile strength polymer cables. Cisco said, finishing his sentence. Yup. Oliver said. Since when did we start selling admission to the Arrow Cave? Roy asked. Do you see what you've done? Oliver asked Felicity, who sat at her computer, innocently. And it's not really a cave, more of a bunker. Besides, the Arrow Cave doesn't make any sense since arrows are kept in quivers. If Oliver was dressed as a bat or an animal that lived in a cave, then it would make more sense. Naruto said, putting his own 2 cents into the pile. Oh, not a bad point. Caitlin said. Awesome. Cisco said as he looked at Oliver's suit. I have so many ideas for improvements. Oliver raised an eyebrow as Cisco then walked over to Roy's suit. And this? Oh man, this is the bomb. And I mean, red is so much cooler than green, am I right? Cisco asked as Roy smiled. I am really starting to like this guy. Roy said as Naruto chuckled. Hey, what's that for? Caitlin said, pointing to the ladder in front of her desk. Sighs distracting me from work. Felicity said. So, where's Mr. Diggle? Caitlin asked. He's running down a lead. Roy said. Naruto looked at saw Cisco prick his finger on one of Oliver's arrows. Put the arrow down before you hurt yourself, Cisco. Naruto said as Cisco did. Sorry for the abrupt visit, but we didn't come empty-handed. We brought some gifts. Naruto held up the metal case and put it on an empty table. What's in the case? Roy asked. Well, after Oliver's visit to Central City, I mentioned that Star Labs would be more than happy to help in developing some new tech. So, we've got some new trick arrows for you to use. Naruto said as he opened the metal case to show several dozen arrows in foam padding, arrow tips, different arrow shafts made of different polymers, and a smaller metal case. Whoa, Oliver said as he and Roy looked over the case's content. How did you do all this? Roy asked. Well, I couldn't have done it without my partner in crime, Mr. Cisco Ramon. Thank you, Cisco, Naruto said as Cisco bowed. You're welcome, Cisco said. So, we've got a whole bunch of new arrows for you guys to use. If you like them, we can make more, no problem. Naruto said as he pulled out some basic-looking arrows. New arrows made of an aluminum carbon composite metal, and the shaft is a patented polymer. Twice as deadly and a third the weight. Naruto handed the arrow to Oliver, who picked it up and could feel it was lighter. Not bad, Oliver said. And we've got different arrowhead attachments you can use depending on the situation. Naruto said as he picked up a steel-colored arrow tip and casing. This one is a new explosive arrow. Concentrated thermite with a dash of nitro. This will blast apart a brick wall and put a hole in solid steel. Sweet, Roy said as he took the arrow. Just be careful you're at a far enough distance before you use it. And we've got a new flashbang, jettisoning and grapple arrows with a new strength polymer cable. It can pull a lot more weight and the grapple system makes getting up high places a lot easier. Naruto said as Oliver looked at them. Naruto then took out a yellow-colored arrow tip and casing. This one is for when technology is involved. An electronic payload arrow, when shot near a computer or electrical system, can be used to allow Felicity easier access. And these payloads can be modified to deliver viruses into a computer system should you need to do so from afar. Naruto said as he handed it to Felicity. Ooh, Felicity said as she looked at it. Naruto then took out an orange-colored arrow point and casing. This one is a white phosphorus arrow. When the situation calls for something to be melted or a huge plume of smoke to be made, this is your best shot. But we've added a little component of red phosphorus which acts as a flame retardant so it doesn't explode out of control. Naruto said as he put the arrow down. But I think, this is one you'll like the most. Naruto then took out the small metal case and opened it to reveal a blue-colored arrow tip and metal casing. This one is something that's best described by seeing it in action. Naruto said as he attached the arrow tip and casing to a spare arrow and handed it to Oliver. Shoot it at that training dummy over there. Naruto said as he pointed to the training dummy at the other side of the room. Oliver looked at the arrow and then at Naruto. Trust me, it's best to see it in action. Oliver grabbed his bow and knocked the arrow. He aimed at the training dummy and released. Once the arrow made impact, the casing on the arrow broke out and a dark blue-colored foam began to immediately expand in a 2-foot radius around the dummy before eventually hardening. Whoa, Roy said as he, Felicity and Oliver were shocked at what just happened. What is that? Felicity asked as she and Roy walked over to the foamed target and Oliver looked at Naruto who was smiling proudly. High-density polyurethane foam trick arrow, or in layman's terms, the liquid cement arrow. Naruto said as Roy tapped the foam and to Naruto's word, it had hardened and felt like concrete. How did you do this? Felicity asked. It was a group effort. Cisco and Caitlin helped me with making the arrow and I got the idea after a lesson I gave to Barry. The casing in the arrow has the mixture in liquid form. It will only turn into foam when it comes into contact with an oxidant. Once the arrow is fired and contacts an object, the impact ruptures the casing and the foam oxidizes and expands out within a 2-foot radius from the point of impact. And as you saw, it solidifies within a few seconds. And it has the same density as common concrete. Naruto said as he walked up to the foam and tapped it with the back of his knuckles, making a knocking sound on the cement. This is awesome, Roy said as he was amazed at what he saw. Naruto then walked over and grabbed the metal case holding the liquid cement arrows and handed them over to Oliver. The use is up to you. Need to create a roadblock for a car, close a doorway or trap someone, it'll do the job. And unless the person has super strength, they're not getting out. Naruto said as he took out a small pill vial of blue liquid from the container. And when you need to move the person, just break the vial over the foam. Naruto tossed the vial at the foam and it broke against it. The vial broke and sprinkled the foam with a blue liquid and began to sizzle the foam. Within a few seconds, the foam had turned into a liquid and splashed on the ground. The vial solution turns the foam into a liquid. Naruto said as he super sped around the training dummy and cleaned up the mess in 5 seconds. Perfect capture and no danger. Nicely done, Naruto, Oliver said as Naruto smiled. Thank you. Don't worry, the materials are untraceable and I've got some more ideas and prototypes I think you'll like. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. Oliver then got a ring on his phone and saw it was Dig. Dig, Oliver answered. We have a little situation here. Our man's at Argus with some backup and Lila's here. And Oliver, this guy. He's the real deal, Dig said as Oliver nodded and hung up. Our target is storming Argus and Lila is there, Oliver said as Roy nodded. The two grabbed their bows and their suits. Badass. So cool, Cisco said. It'll be over by the time they get there, Caitlin said. Oliver, let Met help. I can get you there in seconds. Naruto said. Oliver put on his hoodie and looked at Naruto. All right, suit up. Oliver said as Naruto unzipped his backpack. He moved at super speed and in a second was ready. Our target is attacking Argus with backup, probably mercenaries. Roy and I will handle him, you secure the perimeter. Got it. Naruto said as Oliver and Roy finished suiting up. Keeps your head steady and close your eyes. Naruto grabbed Oliver and Roy by the shoulder and left the bunker in a flash while Caitlin texted Barry for backup. Naruto raced through the city holding Oliver and Roy and appeared at the Argus facility. They walked in to see the dead guard and heard gunshots inside. Head east and secure all the mercenaries. Arsenal and I will help dig. Arrow said as Impulse nodded and walked inside the building while Arrow and Arsenal went their separate way. Impulse walked in to see the Argus agents in a shootout with heavily armed mercenaries and the Argus agents were losing. Impulse saw one mercenary take out a rocket launcher, so Impulse ran forward and moved the agents out of the way. The rocket hit where the agents were as the mercenaries were confused where the agents went. Impulse gathered all the agents and put them in a room before running towards the mercenaries. He shoulder-checked one mercenary and sent him flying into a wall, knocking him out. He turned and kicked another mercenary and sent him skidding across the ground. The mercenaries fired in his general direction as Impulse ducked and dodged, and in a blur of orange and white lightning, the mercenaries were disarmed, knocked out and tied up together in a circle. Impulse smiled as he super sped through the facility to make sure he got all the mercenaries, and he did. He arrived in the large open area where Arsenal and Arrow fought the Boomerang Man when he saw two boomerangs heading towards Oliver when Barry ran by and grabbed them. He slid to a stop in a corner as Arrow, Arsenal, Dig, Lila, and the Boomerang Man saw a man save the Arrow in a flash. The Boomerang Man put in earpieces and threw down a large concussion, flash, and smoke bomb that concussed and blinded everyone. The impact lasted nearly a minute before the effects began to dissipate and the Boomerang Man was long gone. Arrow looked at Flash and Imbecile, who both smiled and left before Lila and the Argus agents could question them. Line break XXXXX. While Oliver talked to Lila to get some information on the Boomerang Man who attacked them, Naruto and Barry returned to the bunker. Naruto and Barry slid to a stop as the rush of air caused some papers to fly around. Geez. Felicity said as she picked up the papers. Sorry. Naruto said as he helped and then quickly changed back into his regular clothes. So, how'd it go? Caitlin asked. Easy. Took care of the mercenaries, but the Boomerang guy is gone. Why did you call Barry? Naruto asked. I thought you could use some help. Caitlin said. Well, thanks for showing up when you did. Naruto said as Barry nodded. No problem. Barry said as he saw the salmon ladder. Cool. Barry then began doing the exercise at super speed as Caitlin and Felicity watched him go up and down the ladder in a blur of his yellow lightning. How often does Oliver do this? Caitlin asked. At least every Wednesday. There's a lot sweating. Felicity said as Barry jumped down, finished with the exercise. I don't see what's so hard about that. Barry said as he handed the bar to Naruto. I think you're meant to do it without powers. Naruto said as he hooked the bar onto the first row to give it a try. I'm not sure that Caitlin should have called you. Oliver's not that great playing with others. Felicity said. Oh, come. Oliver and Naruto kicked ass last week. Cisco said as Naruto did a pull-up and then managed to pull and hook himself up to the second notch. They were like, in a league of their own. Geez, this is a lot harder than it looks. Naruto said as he did another pull-up. Yeah, that was kind of a one-time thing. Not that Oliver doesn't appreciate all the support, but when it comes to here, it's different. Felicity said. The guy was tossing around exploding boomerangs, they needed some backup. And I need some dinner. That salmon ladder made me hungry for sushi. Barry said as he super sped away, causing more of Felicity's papers to fly everywhere. And I need to get some paperweights down here. Felicity said as she slammed the papers down. Should have warned you about that. Caitlin joked as Naruto did another pull-up and tried to hook onto the third row but missed and landed on his back. Shit. Naruto said as Cisco, Caitlin and Felicity ran to him. Naruto, you okay? Caitlin asked as Naruto groaned in pain. I just got the wind knocked out of me. Naruto said as he chuckled. Cisco smiled and helped him to his feet as Oliver, Roy, Diggle, and Lila walked in. Naruto looked at Oliver, who raised an eyebrow as to why he wasn't in uniform, but Naruto shook his head no to not bring it up, and Oliver nodded back. Are you okay? Felicity asked Lila. Can't work for Argus without making a few enemies. I'm sorry to involve all of you in this. Lila said as Dig took a plastic bag out of his pocket containing the shards of the boomerangs. Is that Argus property? It's evidence. Dig said as Lila let it go when whoosh of air blew past them and Barry arrived sitting in Felicity's chair with some sushi. Lila was speechless as to what she was seeing as Naruto looked at Barry like he was crazy. Dude. Secret identity. Naruto told him. They're married. Barry replied. We're not married. Dig and Lila said. Together, whatever. He told her about me. Barry said as Dig shook his head no. You didn't. I keep secrets for a living man. Dig said as Naruto and Oliver shook their heads. My bad. Barry said. You're. Lila tried to find the words. The Flash. Sushi. Barry asked. Offering, but she shook her head no. We need a location on the man who's after Lila. His name is Digger Harkness. Oliver said. Well, first step is to work the evidence. Barry said. Barry, can I speak to you for a moment, please? Oliver asked as they walked to the other side of the room. I appreciate your help back at Argus, but we have this handled. You don't want to team up again? Barry asked. Well, last time wasn't a team up so much as Naruto and I fighting you to make sure you didn't hurt people. And besides, things work differently here. Starling City is meaner. Oliver said. I'm sorry for what happened before, but I seem to remember helping you pretty good last year, and that was without powers. I've been practicing everything you've taught me. I'm casing new environments and I'm not running in blind. Barry said as Oliver sighed. We do this my way. Oliver said. Yes, awesome. Okay, so what's our first move? Barry asked. We need to reassemble the evidence. It will take some time, but it will. Oliver was cut off as Barry used his super speed and put the shards back together into 5 boomerangs. Be worth it. Rad. This is a bit more touched out than the one you brought to Central City. 3D printed polymer with a circuitry weave. Cisco said. Some of Harkness's boomerangs exploded. Roy said. Oh, yeah, there are grooves in here that can definitely pack a C4 charge. Cisco said. Maybe if we figure out where Harkness got the supplies, we can track him down that way. Naruto said as he noticed Lila looking at him. Theirs weren't made by Kaboom Boomerang. Cisco said, looking at the design. Kaboom Boomerang? Roy asked. Yeah, Cisco said. It's not your best. Barry joked. Really? It makes perfect sense, Cisco. Oliver said, shutting him up. If Harkness didn't make them, then we need to figure out who did. Oliver said. And who he made the buy off of. Dig added. Marcos. You see this collapsible node design, a dead giveaway. That's his signature. Cisco said. We need a location on Claus Marcos. Cisco said as Oliver nodded while Felicity got to work. No known home address or place of employment for Mr. Marcos. But he was arrested last year by an officer, Quentin Lance. Felicity said as Oliver nodded. Barry and Oliver left to speak to Lance while everyone else stayed behind. Naruto walked over to the case holding his new trick arrows and began assembling them for Oliver to use when Lila walked over. I don't think I know you. Lila Michaels. Lila said as she held her hand out. Naruto looked at her for a second before shaking her hand. Naruto Namikaze. Naruto said as Lila nodded. Oh, I thought you looked familiar. You look like your father. Lila said as Naruto raised an eyebrow. You knew my father? Naruto asked as Lila nodded. Not personally, only by reputation. He was a brilliant scientist, as was your mother. Their paper on subspace field mechanics was required reading at Argus. And I also know they passed. I'm sorry. Lila said as Naruto nodded back with a smile. Thank you. Naruto replied. So, I imagine you follow in their footsteps if you're here with Star Labs. Lila asked as Naruto nodded. Yeah, I just finished getting my degree and I'm working with Dr. Wells on something, but after Oliver helped save Barry, I figured it'd be nice to repay him with some new tech. Naruto said as Lila saw Roy putting together the new arrows Naruto made. I see that. Perhaps you can make something so Johnny stays safe out there. Lila asked as Naruto was confused. Johnny? Naruto asked as he looked at Diggle, who had the look of drop it. Naruto chuckled as he nodded. Sure thing. I think I have a few ideas he might like. Thank you. And if you ever want to make a difference, Argus is always looking for good scientists and engineers. Lila said as Caitlin, Cisco, Felicity, Roy, and Dick subtly glanced at Naruto to see his reaction. Thanks for the job offer, but I'm gonna have to pass. Naruto replied. Any reason? Lila asked, curious. Well, my parents worked with Dr. Wells because he's family and I want to keep that going. And no offense, but seeing as what happened, I'd rather have a job that didn't risk me getting killed by a psychotic boomerang man. Naruto said as Lila was about to respond but thought about what he said. Fair enough. Lila said as she walked over to Dig. Naruto began putting together the new arrows together for Oliver and Roy to use and helped Cisco analyze the material in the boomerang to figure out any kind of information that could possibly help Oliver. 40 minutes later, they got a call from Barry on a possible lead on Marcos. Oliver wanted Naruto, Roy, and Diggle to meet him and Barry at the location. Naruto got suited up and was with Arrow, Arsenal, and the Flash at a Bratva hideout. I can't believe you're a member of the Russian mob. Flash said. Former member, probably. We had a falling out last year. This is where they run their cybercrime operation. Arrow said. Hey, nice outfit by the way. Flash said, joking while Naruto and the others just kept going on. This place is like a fortress. Arsenal said. Kalashnikovs everywhere. Diggle said. Arsenal take the southeast corner. Flash, Impulse scan the perimeter. Arrow said as Arsenal got to it and Flash and Impulse super sped away. Dig. Are you going to be okay? You think I'll lose it because Harkness is after Lila? I'm good. Dig said as he went to the west corner. Arrow went into the north corner as the Flash zipped by him. Impulse ran by and stopped by the Arrow as they saw the Flash standing around a bunch of unconscious, tied up Bratva members with a cocky smile. I had 8 seconds to kill. Flash said with a smile, thinking he did a good job. Was I wrong? Arrow just kept walking while Impulse shook his head and followed the Arrow. What? Flash asked. The Arrow kicked open the door as Marcos ran for the door when Impulse appeared in front of him. You're not going anywhere, Impulse said as he grabbed him and shoved him against the table. Arrow walked up and held up the broken boomerang. You made this for Digger Harkness. I want to know where he is. Arrow said as Marcos just smirked. Go to hell, Marcos said as Arrow fired an arrow and hit him in the shoulder. Arg. The Flash was shocked to see the Arrow shoot Marcos with no provocation. The only thing that hurts worse than an arrow going in is an arrow coming out. Arrow shouted as he grabbed the arrow and Marcos shouted in pain. Whoa, hey, what are you doing? Flash asked. Getting information. Where is he? Arrow shouted. I don't know. Marcos shouted back. He said he doesn't know. Flash told him. Flash, back off, Impulse said, holding him back. He's lying. If you want to be able to raise your arm again, tell me where he is. Arrow shouted as Marcos held up a phone. Here, Harkness gave it to me, it's encrypted. I had an order ready for him. I called, he came. I don't know where he is, I swear. Marcos said as Arrow backed off. Flash bandaged up Marcos and dropped him off at the CCPD. Arrow and Impulse looked around and took anything that could be helpful. Let me see the phone. Naruto said as Oliver handed it to him. Looks like a rudimentary null key encryption. Shouldn't take too long to break. Where did you learn that? Oliver asked. The internet is a wonderful thing. But this kind of encryption is less about keeping something secret and more about setting a trap. Something else is going on. Naruto said as he handed the phone back to Oliver and walked over to Marco's computer and pulled out the hard drive. Maybe his hard drive will offer up some information. You okay? Oliver asked. Yeah, Just trying to stay focused, like you said. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. Do you always have to do that? Interrogate. Sometimes. It's not pleasant work for people who aren't used to it. Oliver said. That's an understatement. Naruto said as Oliver nodded. Naruto, I get that this might be difficult to watch and understand, but there will come a time in Central City that just asking for information isn't enough. There are criminals out there who only deal in extremes, and sometimes it might be necessary to use extreme methods to fight back. Oliver said as Naruto nodded, understanding the lesson. I get it, believe me I do. The world is a dangerous place. I just don't think I could do something like that. Naruto said. And I hope that you never have to. But the criminals in this city don't play with kid gloves. You saw Marcos, he wouldn't have given up anything. Oliver said as Naruto nodded. I get it. Let's go. Naruto said as Barry arrived. Felicity can crack the encryption. Let's go. Oliver said as Barry looked upset and angry. What? You tortured that guy? Barry said. I interrogated him. Oliver replied as Barry scoffed. When my friend said that your tactics made you a criminal, I defended you. I thought you were supposed to be a hero. I thought that we were supposed to be better than them. Barry said. Barry, you live in Central City, where it's sunny all the time and your enemies get cute nicknames. You're not in Central City. Oliver said. Yeah, Barry replied. I live in a city where my best friend was murdered. Where a woman I loved was shot full of arrows and sent tumbling off a rooftop. Where my mother was murdered right in front of me. So, before you, my mother was murdered in front of me too. But I don't use my personal tragedies as an excuse to just torture whoever pisses me off. Barry said, interrupting him. Well, I'm sorry, Barry. I'm not emotionally stable as you are. But that wasn't the point. The point is that you need to take this seriously and stop treating fighting crime like a comic book. Oliver said as he walked past Barry. What are you talking about? Barry asked. Barry, from what I've seen so far you have a lot of potential but you are still new at this. And there will come a time when your speed and cheerful attitude won't be enough to save people, and when that happens, people die. Saving your city and becoming the Flash is a serious task, and quite frankly your setup and naming your enemies will silly code names and treating everything with a jovial attitude blinds you to the seriousness of what we do. Oliver said as Barry looked at Oliver like he was insane. Naruto, come on. Back me up. Barry said as Naruto sighed. Barry, I agree with Oliver. Naruto said as Barry looked at him like he was insane. Are you kidding me? Barry asked. Hey, I'm not saying I'm okay with what I saw, but this is Oliver's city and if he knows what he's doing, we should follow his lead. Naruto replied. Naruto, he tortured that guy. Barry said. Interrogated. I've seen cops in real life and movies do a lot worse. And he's got a point. The fact that we deal with meta-humans makes the threats we face almost not normal. But how many close calls have there been? How many dangerous bad guys have nearly killed us or innocent people? Naruto said. And we dealt with it. Barry said. By the skin of our teeth. But what happens the day we face someone we can't predict or is difficult? We're still new at this, and right now we need to absorb everything we can so we know what to do should that happen. Naruto said as he walked over to Oliver. I can't believe this. Barry said, shocked by what Naruto was saying. If you don't think you're up to it, you know your way back to Central City. Oliver said as he left and Naruto followed after him. Line break XXXXX. They arrived back at the base and Naruto quickly changed back to normal clothes so he kept his identity a secret. Felicity worked on cracking the encryption on Harkness's phone and like Naruto said it wasn't that complicated. She also analyzed the phone and she might be able to track down Harkness's old phone and triangulate his current position. Naruto was sitting next to her, absorbing how she worked and what he could use in the future. Barry was still brooding over his ideological differences between Oliver, but no one mentioned it because they were trying to stay focused on the task at hand and they didn't want another argument to break out. Oliver was fitting his quiver with some of the new arrows that Naruto made as Lila walked over. Everything okay between you and Speedy? Lila asked as Oliver was confused. What? Roy. Yeah, we're fine. Oliver replied. I meant him. Lila said, looking at Barry who was brooding by the stairs. Oh, we have a difference of opinion on how the world works. Oliver said as Lila nodded and looked at Dig. Yup, I know what that's like. Lila replied. Well, sometimes they don't see it. Oliver said. There are people in the world who deal only in extremes. Lila said. And it'd be naive to think that anything less than extreme measures will stop them. Oliver said as Lila nodded. Sometimes bravery isn't enough. Sometimes the world requires us to be bold. Lila said. Whatever the personal cost. Oliver said. I've got him. He's at a warehouse at the intersection of Infantino and Adams. Felicity said as she pulled up satellite images of the warehouse. Is that? Lila asked. Argus spy satellite. Yeah. Thermographic imaging shows 10 bodies inside. Felicity said. Harkness knows we're coming. Dig said. I can track his cell phone's position with this. Cisco said, holding up a tablet. Cisco, you're with Diggle and Roy. Oliver said as Barry walked over. I'll race you there. Barry said as he left while Oliver looked at Naruto. Naruto, are you okay here? Oliver asked as Naruto nodded. Yeah, there's still something I want to check out. Go, Naruto said as they left. Felicity, can you do another scan of the phone's hardware after you shut it down? Sure, give me 1 second. Felicity said as she copied the phone's data onto her computer and turned off the phone. She began going through the phone's code looking for any anomalies. What am I looking for again? I don't know. Something doesn't seem right. It all seems too easy. Naruto said. What do you mean? Lila asked. Well, we tracked down Harkness and stopped him from killing you. But someone with his kind of training and grudge isn't one to give up on a fight. And with Oliver and Barry, he knows a straight-up attack is stupid. He'd want to be smart. Naruto said. Maybe you're overthinking this. Caitlin said. No, Dr. Wells always told me to trust my gut when something seems off, and right now my gut is telling me there is something else going on. Naruto said as Felicity saw one weird code in the phone. I think I found something. Felicity said. What is it? Lila asked. It looks like a remote-operated backtrace system. Someone can turn the cell phone on and off, make calls and backtrace the signal. Felicity said as the phone began ringing, getting a call from a blocked number. Didn't I shut that off? It's Harkness. This is a trap. We need to move. Naruto said as they all got up to leave when Naruto's super speed senses saw a boomerang heading straight for Lila, so he grabbed her and dove to the side, just in time to avoid Lila getting a boomerang in the head. Naruto and Lila hit the ground as Felicity and Caitlin took cover behind Oliver's dummy case while Naruto and Lila took cover behind Felicity's workstation. Hello, Lila. It's been a long time. Harkness said as he threw out 2 boomerangs that smashed through some of the lights and the other hit one of Felicity's computer screens. Harkness threw another boomerang that smashed into Oliver's outfit case and knocked it over as Naruto and Lila covered themselves from the shattered glass. Gun. Lila shouted. Cabinet. 3rd drawer. Felicity shouted as Lila grabbed a pistol and loaded it. Harkness took cover behind a table as Lila fired her pistol. Naruto peeked out from behind the workstation and saw Harkness throw another boomerang as Naruto ducked. You know what I like about boomerangs, Lila? They're proof that things can come back to haunt you. Harkness shouted as he stood up from his cover and threw 2 boomerangs at Lila, which she managed to stay low and avoid as she ducked next to a cabinet for cover. Harkness pulled out a special boomerang that had a grenade pin and pulled it off. You had a bomb in the back of my neck. Now, I've got something special for yours. Lila, get down. Felicity shouted as Naruto watched Harkness throw a boomerang towards Lila in slow motion. Naruto ran from behind the computers and tackled Lila out of the way as the boomerang got close to her and exploded, sending Naruto and Lila through Roy's display case and onto the ground hard. No, Felicity shouted as she threw an explosive arrowhead at Harkness. Harkness ran just in time to avoid any damage from the explosion, and left the bunker while Felicity and Caitlin ran over to check on Lila and Naruto. Felicity turned Lila over and saw some shrapnel wounds on her chest and side, and they were bleeding pretty badly. Naruto groaned in pain as he tried to catch his breath. Caitlin helped him onto his back as Naruto looked down and saw a shard of metal sticking out of his left thigh. Arg! Naruto shouted as he pulled it out. Fuck. Geez, that hurt. Caitlin got some bandages as Naruto looked at Lila. Caitlin, I'm fine. Look after Lila, Naruto said as he took the bandages and wrapped them around his wound. Naruto, you need help. Caitlin said. I'm fine. Lila needs your help more than I do. Naruto said as she nodded. Lidocaine. I need lidocaine. Caitlin said as she ran over to the medical cabinet. I only have epinephrine. Felicity said. That's fine. Caitlin said as she got the needle of epinephrine. Keep pressure on the wounds and keep her awake. Caitlin injected the epinephrine while Felicity did her best to stop the bleeding and keep Lila awake. They moved Lila onto a table and Caitlin did her best to keep her stable while Naruto sat in a chair and bandaged his wound. Lila. They heard Dig shout as he, Oliver, Roy, Barry, and Cisco came back. Lila. She's not moving. I've got her stabilized but she has several shrapnel wounds. I can't operate on her here. Caitlin said as Dig looked at Barry. Barry. Dig said as Barry looked at Oliver. Starling Generals on 8th and Wilcox. Oliver said as Barry grabbed Lila and super sped to the hospital. Dig and Caitlin drove to the hospital to check on Lila while Roy, Felicity and Cisco waited in the club. Oliver wanted to be alone for a while. Barry was with Oliver as was Naruto who wasn't moving from the chair he was sitting in until he healed. This is all my fault. Oliver said. It's really not. Barry told him. I tortured Marcos to give up that phone. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for me. Oliver said. That's bullshit. Naruto said as Oliver looked at him. Harkness just outplayed you, Oliver. You'll get him. How can you be so sure? Oliver asked as Naruto adjusted himself on the chair, groaning in discomfort. To do what I do it takes conviction. And every time I do that I'm trading away small pieces of myself. So, you asked me what's wrong, Barry. This is it. The part that I'm trading away is Oliver Queen. And lately I've been feeling that there's nothing left except the arrow. I think like Naruto said, bullshit. Look, you've convinced yourself that everything you've been through took away your humanity. But I think it's because of your humanity that you made it through. You wouldn't have survived, much less come out the other end a hero, somebody who wants to do good, if you didn't have a light inside of you. Barry said. Oliver, Barry's right. You wouldn't be here today, let alone the past 2 years keeping this city safe if Oliver Queen is completely gone. The people you saved, the lives you've changed, that's your humanity. And you're helping to pass that on to Felicity, Roy, Dig, and Barry and I. Oliver Queen is a huge part of this as much as the arrow is. And you'll have setbacks but I think you told me that you keep getting up no matter how hard you get hit. Naruto said as Oliver cracked a small smile. Besides, if you don't believe that then what I found will have been for nothing. What? Barry asked. I found out how Harkness found his way to the bunker. I can also do the same and track him. Naruto said as he rolled his chair over to Felicity's computer and began doing the search as Barry and Oliver walked over to him and saw Naruto get to work. He's heading to the train station. He's not getting away. Oliver said. Let's go. Naruto said as he tried to stand up but groaned in pain. Arg. Naruto, you're still recovering from your wound. Take it easy, Oliver and I got this. Barry said as he grabbed Oliver and they left for the train station. Felicity, Cisco, Roy, and Caitlin came back down and Naruto filled them in on what happened. Felicity got to work and pulled up security camera footage from the train station and they saw the arrow and Flash facing off against Harkness. They say Harkness pull out a small detonator and arm it. The Flash then left and called into the bunker. Guys, Harkness has 5 bombs planted throughout the city. I need to know where. Flash told them. To cover the whole city, Harkness would have to use remote-controlled IEDs. Felicity said. If we can key into that frequency we can track them. Cisco said as they got to work. Naruto watched Oliver fight Harkness fight on the security camera footage with Oliver whining and trapping Harkness with one of Naruto's liquid cement arrows. I need the locations. I need 5 locations. Flash shouted. The 5 receivers. Got it. The closest one is behind a restaurant at Faith and Flower. Cisco said as Barry arrived at the location and found the bomb in a garbage can. Okay, guys, I found it. I'm gonna run it out of the city. Flash said. Barry, wait, Felicity said. That's not an option. Flash replied. We think the bombs are linked. Press the emblem on your suit. I installed a mini cam last week. You see the secondary trigger. It's not just a receiver. Cisco said. It's a transmitter. Flash said. Barry, if you try to defuse the bomb, the second trigger is going to transmit a signal and the other bombs will explode. Felicity said. You're gonna have to disarm all the bombs at the same time. Cisco said. You're thinking of multiplex. Even if Naruto could help, we can't be in 5 places at once. Flash said as he then got an idea. But I don't have to be. The Flash then whisked into the bunker and grabbed Roy, Felicity, Cisco, and Caitlin one by one and dropped them off at one of the bomb locations, leaving Naruto by the computers. Come on, guys. Less than 20 seconds. Okay, everyone needs to cut the wires exactly on 3. 1, 2, 3. Cisco shouted as they did, and there were no explosions. Oh, screw you, Captain Boomerang. Nicely done, everyone. Whoa, Naruto shouted. Felicity, Roy, Cisco, and Caitlin came back to the bunker while Oliver and Barry dropped off Harkness to his new prison. Until they got back, Felicity gave Caitlin the arrow that they needed DNA evidence off of. Some of the STR markers on the DNA sample have degraded, but I've got a computer back at the lab that should fill in the gaps. Caitlin said as she put the arrow in a special container. Thank you, Caitlin. Felicity said. I'll let you know as soon as I have the results. I'll call this time. Caitlin said as Felicity chuckled. It's cool. You guys are fun. Roy said. So are you guys. Well, you could be if you realized you were working under a nightclub. Cisco said. A time and place for everything, Cisco. Here, to work. Naruto said as Cisco nodded. How you are doing, Naruto? Felicity said as Naruto undid the bandage and the wound had healed. I'm fine, Felicity. One of the perks of super healing. Naruto said as he stood up and felt fine. You were very brave tonight, Naruto. Caitlin said. How? I was stuck in a chair while Barry and Oliver took down Captain Boomerang. Naruto said as Cisco smiled. So, glad that name is catching on. Cisco said. True, but Lila would be dead if it wasn't for you. You moved her out of the way before she got mortally wounded. I'm proud of you, Caitlin said as Naruto smiled. But don't make a habit out of it. I don't think I can promise that. Occupational hazard and all. Naruto joked as Oliver and Barry walked back in. Did you guys take care of business? Cisco asked. Digger Harkness is now cellmates with one Slade Wilson. Oliver said. We've got a pipeline. He's got a gorgeous tropical island. Barry said. With the land mines. Felicity said as everyone was confused. It's a long story. What are these? Barry asked, looking at 2 new mannequins. Oliver had me put those in while you were at the hospital. Felicity said. This is for us. Barry asked as Naruto smiled, looking at the mannequin. For the next time you're in town. Oliver said. There's gonna be a next time. Barry asked. I'm still calling the shots. Oliver said as Barry chuckled. We'll talk about that. Barry replied. Yes, we will. And then I'll call the shots. Oliver replied with a smile. Well, we've got an extra gift for you, Oliver. Early Christmas present. Turns out Star Labs Industrial Fabricator was based out of Starling City. Cisco said as he opened the box showing Oliver's new jacket. Whoa, Oliver said. Polymer Kevlar weave. 25% lighter and can carry 15% more gear. Naruto and I've got some designs we're working up that should be cool. Cisco said as Naruto chuckled. It's subtle. Oliver said. I wanted to replace the hood. But Felicity said it had sentimental value. Cisco said as Oliver shook his hand. Thank you. Oliver replied. So, you guys heading back? Roy asked. It's possible that Dr. Wells never signed off on our little vacation. Caitlin said. Do you guys still take the train? Roy asked. Sure, when we need a nap. Barry said as Naruto chuckled. And I think a nap will be warranted. Naruto said. Line break XXXXX. Naruto and the team were back in Central City after their team up with Oliver and Team Arrow. Things in Central City had quieted down as Christmas was coming up, and it seemed that even the criminals were taking the holidays off. Naruto loved the holidays normally ever since he could remember, but ever since his parents died the holidays had lost their luster. His parents used to go all out with a party and an amazing dinner with all their friends, but after his parents' accident, he just spent the holidays alone. With Linda gone to see her parents at Coast City, Naruto kept to himself, which is how he liked it this time of year. Christmas was later this week, and between working on the arc reactor, helping at the shelter and training, Naruto kept to himself. Barry called the team to Star Labs because he had Christmas presents to hand out. Merry Christmas, everyone. It's just a small token of my gratitude for everything you guys have done for me this year. Barry said as he handed everyone a present. Ah, Caitlin said as they all smiled. I think I speak on behalf of my colleagues when I say that you've been a gift for us, Barry. Dr. Wells said as Barry then pulled out a thermos. What's that? Caitlin asked. This is compliments of Iris, Grandma Esther's famous eggnog. Barry said as Cisco smiled. That's what I'm talking about. Cisco said as he walked over to grab glasses while cleared his throat. Maybe later for me. I've got some stuff to take care of. I'll see you guys later. Naruto said as he walked to the door. Naruto. Caitlin said as Naruto then super sped away. Did I say something wrong? Barry asked. No, Mr. Allen. This is Naruto's favorite time of year. He and his parents loved celebrating the holidays, but since their death, I'm sure this time just reminds him that they're no longer with us. Dr. Wells said as everyone nodded. Yeah, Naruto has been acting a lot gloomier lately. Cisco said. I'm gonna get him a gift. Maybe that'll cheer him up. Thank you very much. Caitlin said as she left to go shopping. Naruto left Star Labs and made a stop to his parents' graves. Naruto walked up to their gravestones and laid down some flowers as he sat down. Merry Christmas, Mom, Dad. It's the second Christmas with the both of you no longer here, and it doesn't get any easier. Naruto said as he sighed. I know that this is supposed to be a magical time of year and you've always told me to be grateful of what we have, but, God, this is so hard without you two here. Naruto said as tears began to fall down his cheek. I've pulled my life back together like you two would have wanted, but I miss you two so much. Even with all my powers, I can't bring you two back. Naruto wiped the tears from his face as he heard someone coming up behind him and saw Kurama walk up to him. Kurama sat down next to Naruto as Naruto pet his head. Do you miss them too, boy? Naruto asked as Kurama laid down on the ground and whined. Me too. So much. You're torturing yourself, Naruto. Naruto heard as he saw Shizune and Tsunade walk up to him. How did you know I was here? Naruto asked. It's where you went to a lot last year. Tsunade said as they knelt down to him. Naruto, you keep torturing yourself like this. Maybe I do deserve to be tortured. Naruto said. That's crazy, Naruto. What happened to your parents was an accident. Shizune said. An accident that never should have happened. I should have stayed at my dorm instead of convincing my parents to dinner. If I hadn't been so stupid, they'd still be alive. Naruto said as he grabbed his hair in frustration, anger, and sadness. Naruto, the accident wasn't your fault. The drunk driver who hit them is in jail and is never getting out. Your parents would want you to move on, not torture yourself over what could have or should have happened. Tsunade told him as she looked at their graves. I bet if they could see you now, they'd be so proud. More like disappointed. Naruto said. Only if you keep torturing yourself like this every year. Naruto, you've saved countless people as Impulse, and at Star Labs, you can one day solve the world's energy problems. You have friends again. Dr. Wells is back in your life. You help the kids at the shelter and you have a beautiful girlfriend who loves you. Shizune said as she hugged Naruto. Stop beating yourself up and accept what has happened and move on. I'm not going to be forgetting what happened anytime soon. Naruto said. She's not saying to forget and move on. She's saying to accept what happened, cherish the memories you have and make new ones. Linda isn't here, but you have friends who want to make this Christmas the most memorable one it can be. And I think a nice, peaceful, and quiet Christmas is exactly what you need to help you. Tsunade said. Unknown to her, this Christmas wasn't going to be nice, peaceful, or quiet. Caitlin was at the Central City Mall, shopping for a present for Dr. Wells and Naruto. She had just finished shopping and was walking to her car in the parking garage talking to Cisco on the phone. Well, it was either that or Stephen Hawking's new autobiography. And we both know how he feels about Hawking. And for Naruto, I have it narrowed down between a lifetime supply of ramen coupon from that restaurant at the mall or a complete and limited edition collection set of that manga Naruto likes. One Punch Man, I think. Caitlin said as she chuckled at Cisco's response. You're probably right. A lifetime supply coupon for Naruto would tax that restaurant to the bone. There was another manga series one think Naruto would like. Menma it was called. The character kind of looks like Naruto if he had dark hair. You're right, I'll stick with the One Punch Man set. I'll talk to you when I get back, Cisco. Caitlin said as she hung up. She walked to her car and unlocked the door when she saw the reflection of what looked like a dirty and grizzled Ronnie. She walked down the garage and followed the homeless-looking man and saw his head and hands burst into flames. The man turned around and Caitlin could have sworn she saw it was Ronnie. At Mercury Labs in a restricted wing of the facility under special lock and key, a scientist was locking up a special prototype in a secure vault before he left for the night. The scientist and the guards were about to leave when the alarm sounded. While the scientist hid in a secure vault, he witnessed a man in yellow blur past and kill the two guards before quickly leaving. Barry and the CCPD arrived at Mercury Labs the next morning, having gotten the call about the attempted break-in and murders. Barry, what do we got? Joe asked. The blood splatter patterns and trajectory of the remains, only a high-speed collision could have done this. But to cause this type of damage to a human in this space, whatever hit them would have to have been moving fast. Barry said as Joe realized who it was. Get this, Eddie said as he walked over. The witness says all he saw was a blur. Sound familiar? Joe and Barry walked over the scientist. You saw a blur. What was it? Barry asked. Whatever it was looking for something. The scientist said. Well, what did it look like? Barry asked. Like a man in some kind of yellow suit. The scientist said as Barry realized who had done this. Barry, listen, I have to check my files. Joe, you heard him, all right. The man that killed my mom, he's back. Barry said. I know. He's been in town for a few weeks now. He paid a visit to me at the house. He took all the evidence from your mom's case. The files are gone, Joe said. Why wouldn't you tell me this sooner? Barry asked. I couldn't, Joe said. Why? Barry asked. Because he threatened to kill Iris. Joe said as Barry shook his head and sighed in desperation. I know I should have told you this, but I couldn't risk putting her in danger. Let's head to Star Labs, we'll need their help. Joe and Barry arrived at Star Labs and told everyone about the break-in at Mercury Labs and that the man in the yellow suit, the man who killed Barry's mother, was back after all this time. The witness described seeing a yellow blur. Just like the one that killed Barry's mother. Joe said. Then we need to get cracking and stop this speed psycho. I wasn't trying to give him a name. Cisco said. The crime at Mercury Labs was on a floor with highly secured vaults, and the witness said he was looking for something. Barry said. Whatever it was, he wanted it badly enough to kill for it. Dr. Wells said. And to wait all this time to steal it. Naruto said. Doctor, what do you know about this Mercury Labs? Joe asked. Mercury was one of Star Labs' major competitors until our little setback, and then it catapulted to the forefront, led by Dr. Christina McGee. Brilliant but egocentric physicist. Dr. Wells said. Aren't they all? Naruto joked, managing to crack a small smile, and making Cisco chuckle. It says here that Dr. McGee has secured $500 million in private funding to develop, and I quote, prototypes for the technology of the future. Well, I'll be. Tina's messing with tachyons, superluminal particles. Dr. Wells said. Of course. So, what could someone do with one of those things? Joe asked. I don't know. The possibilities are endless if you could devise a matrix stable enough to harness their energy. Dr. Wells said as Naruto thought of something. Dr. Wells, what would happen to a speedster if they used the tachyon matrix? Naruto asked as everyone waited for Dr. Wells to answer. Well, given the particle's nature and a speedster's accelerated cellular makeup and activity, theoretically, a tachyon matrix could potentially increase the speed of the individual to unimaginable lengths. Dr. Wells said as everyone realized that if this man in yellow got the tachyon device, he could be faster than Naruto and Barry combined. He's gonna try and steal it again. We need to get the device from Mercury Labs and use it as a lure. Barry said. Exactly, right. Cisco, Caitlin, Naruto, let's start engineering a trap. Dr. Wells said as they nodded. Naruto, Cisco, and Dr. Wells managed to get the basic for a trap underway, but they would still need the tachyon device, so Naruto, Barry, and Dr. Wells went to CCPD where Dr. McGee would meet them to talk about the break-in. They waited by Joe's desk as Dr. McGee walked in. Hello, I'm Dr. Tina McGee. I've come as soon as I could. I imagine this is about last night's break-in. It is. Barry Allen. Thank you for coming in. Barry said, shaking her hand. My pleasure. Dr. McGee said as she saw Naruto standing next to Harrison Wells. Harrison, didn't expect to see you here. Tina, always a pleasure. Dr. Wells replied. Naruto, lovely to see you again. Dr. McGee said as Naruto smiled and shook her hand. Likewise, Dr. McGee. Naruto said. I heard about your parents. I'm truly sorry they're gone. The world is a lesser place without them, and I'm sorry our meeting had to be under these circumstances. Dr. McGee said as Naruto nodded. Thank you, Dr. McGee. That's why I'm actually here. I'm here helping with the CCPD about the break-in at your lab last night. Naruto said. I wasn't aware you had taken to law enforcement. Dr. McGee said. Part-time. I'm working part-time as Barry's assistant in the CSI department while also pursuing a possible career in science. Naruto said as Dr. McGee nodded. She got a text and excused herself to answer it quickly. Since when were you working here? Barry whispered to Naruto. Since now. Send me the paperwork later. Naruto said as Barry nodded. Sorry about that. So, have you managed to gain any new information on these thieves? Dr. McGee asked. No, but our evidence suggests that whoever broke into Mercury Labs was looking for something. Possibly one of your prototypes. Naruto said. You'll have to narrow that down. We have literally hundreds of projects in development. Dr. McGee said. One containing tachyonic particles. Barry said. We've had encouraging success with tachyons, yes, but there's still a significant gap between our prototype and any real-life application. Dr. McGee told them. We were hoping you would lend us your prototype to use as a lure. Barry said. Us? You're assisting the police now, Harrison? Dr. McGee asked. I'm consulting on this particular case given the scientific density and knowledge to understand it. Listen, Tina, once this man is apprehended, your prototype will be promptly returned. You know nobody wants to ensure the future's technology more than me. Dr. Wells told her. I appreciate the CCPD's concern, Mr. Allen, but Mercury is quite capable of protecting its own assets. Good luck with your manhunt. Give my office a call, Naruto. Mercury Labs is always looking for bright young minds. Good day, gentlemen. Dr. McGee said as she left. Well, that went as expected. Naruto said. I'll talk to Joe. Maybe a court order could get her to cooperate. Barry said as he went to talk to Joe. Naruto, perhaps you should stay here and watch over Mr. Allen. With his personal connection to the case, it might be best to have someone who can help him maintain a cool head. Dr. Wells said as Naruto nodded. Right. If you need me, just call. Naruto said. And you'll be over in a flash, I know. Dr. Wells joked. I would have gone with B there before you could blink. Naruto joked back as Dr. Wells went back to Star Labs. While Dr. Wells went back to Star Labs to work on the trap, Cisco and Caitlin went off on a secret trip of their own while Naruto stayed with Barry in his lab. Naruto tried to get Barry's mind off of what was happening, but it didn't work. To be honest, Naruto didn't expect anything except for the man in the yellow suit himself would get Barry out of this determined drive. Iris did come by for a bit to say that Eddie wanted her to move in with him and that Eddie said that Barry liked Iris romantically. And let's just say that it was awkward. Naruto stayed off to the side and tried to stay hidden while Barry had to play the best friend. When Iris left, Naruto felt sorry for what Barry had to go through. I'm sorry, Barry, Naruto said as Barry sighed. Yeah, Barry replied. Look, it may not mean much coming from me, but after what I saw, I think you need to tell her. Naruto said as Barry looked at him. Tell her how I feel? Barry asked. I know, she's with Eddie, but you've got to at least get this off your chest. Keeping that bottled up is only torturing yourself. Naruto said as he realized he needed to take his own advice. It's a lot more complicated than that. Barry said. Just because it's complicated doesn't mean that it doesn't need to happen. Look, it may be the wrong time and place, but how long are you going to keep doing this to yourself? Barry, I'm your friend and I hate seeing you like this. And a wise old woman told me that the best thing you can do is accept what has happened, move forward and try to find your own happiness. Naruto said as Barry looked at him. Since when did you get so sagely? I thought you were in a holiday funk before. Barry said as Naruto nodded. I was, but the same wise old woman gave the same advice to try and move on, and I want to do that. Naruto said as he sighed. This time of year has been hard for me. And I guess you too. Not having your parents around to make those holiday memories. But she told me to cherish the memories I have and to move on to make new ones. I have closure, I'll help you get yours. Thanks, Naruto. Barry replied. If you want Iris to know how you feel, then you've got to tell her. Maybe she'll feel the same way, you never know. But just keeping it to yourself is only going to hurt you more and make you think of what if. Naruto said as Barry nodded. Naruto put some files in away and checked his email on his phone. He finished and looked out the window. As the thunder boomed and across the street on the rooftop of a building, he saw him. The man in yellow. Barry. Naruto said as Barry looked at Naruto. He stood up and looked where Naruto was looking and saw the man in the yellow suit. So, Barry super sped out of the lab as Naruto followed him. They ran down the street and stopped behind a building where the man in yellow was waiting for them. They both got a good look at the man. He was definitely a speedster, by how fast he was running. His entire body was vibrating and his eyes were glowing red. He just stood there, looking at them. It was you. You were the one in my house that night. You killed my mother. Why? Barry shouted. If you want to know that, you're gonna have to catch me. The man in yellow said as he ran away with a trail of red lightning. Barry and Naruto chased after him with their blurs of yellow and orange-white lightning respectively following their trails. Naruto and Barry zigzagged throughout the city, down the streets, avoiding cars and pedestrians as they tried to catch up with the man in yellow who was extremely fast. Way faster than they were. Naruto looked to his left and saw Barry pushing himself as hard as he could to try and catch the man in yellow, and Naruto was too, but this guy was out of their league. They were slowly catching up as Barry reached out to grab him, but the man in yellow zoomed away before Barry could touch him, like he was taunting him. The man in the yellow suit had Naruto and Barry chase him throughout the city until they reached Central City Stadium. Naruto and Barry stopped in the middle of the field, trying to find out where the man could be when the lights in the stadium turned on and began to flicker erratically like something was messing with the electrical field. A blur of red lightning ran through the stadium before it stopped about 80 yards away from Naruto and Barry. The man in the yellow suit was standing right there. Barry was seething in anger as Naruto tightened his fists. Together, Barry, Naruto said as Barry nodded. Let's end this, Barry said as they ran at the man in the yellow. The man in yellow ran towards them, and once he got close enough, He quickly slid down, knocking Naruto and Barry off their feet before they could even react. And since they were running, the momentum sent them flying through the air and tumbling across the ground. Naruto and Barry looked up and the man was right in front of them. Not fast enough, Flash. He ran as Naruto and Barry chased after him, running through the seats of the stadium. Barry shoved the man as the man pushed back. Naruto ran next to Barry, then jumped to tackle the man in yellow, but he moved out of the way. Naruto and Barry kept shoving and pushing the man in yellow while he shoved back. Naruto and Barry sandwiched the man in yellow, but he then slowed down, threw out a series of speed punches all over their bodies, grabbed them by the back, raced back to the field and threw them to the ground. Naruto and Barry tumbled on the ground as the man in yellow super sped around and kicked them back, before speeding in front of them again. He was taunting them. "Who are you?" Barry shouted, blood dripping from his mouth. "You know who I am, Barry," the man said. Naruto got up and fought the man in yellow, but since he was faster, he could see and block Naruto's moves faster than Naruto could throw them out. Naruto threw out punches, kicks and everything Oliver had taught him, but the man in yellow blocked and dodged them all. He then grabbed and twisted Naruto's arm, punched him across the face, kneed him in the gut, punched him 4 times in the gut, before grabbing his head and throwing him to the ground. Naruto groaned in pain as Barry tried to fight him, but it ended the same way, with Barry getting his ass kicked. "I don't know who you are," Barry shouted. "But you do, Barry. We've been at this a long time, you and I, but I'm always one step ahead," the man said as Naruto tried to attack the man from behind with a vibrating punch, but he moved at the last second and hit Naruto with a vibrating punch to the gut and knocked him across the field and into the wall of the stadium. Naruto coughed up some blood as he saw the man in yellow super speed in front of him. "Nice try, Impulse. But not good enough." The man in yellow moved his head to the side to avoid a punch from Barry, hit Barry in the stomach and slammed him to the ground. "It is your destiny to lose to me, Flash, just as it was your mother's destiny to die that night," the man in yellow said as he ran away. Naruto and Barry leaned up and saw the man in the yellow suit was gone. Naruto laid on the ground, groaning in pain as he now knows what Barry must have felt when he had to save him from Prism. Line break XXXXX. Barry and Naruto made it back to Star Labs, where they rested in the med lab. Caitlin gave them both a brief checkup, and their accelerated healing would make them fine in a few hours if they rested. Naruto and Barry passed out in the med lab and woke up early next morning when they called Joe and Dr. Wells to tell them their fight with the man in yellow. "He acted like he knew me, like we'd done this before," Barry told them. "He was antagonizing you, Bar," Joe told him. "It wasn't just that, Joe. The way he spoke, he definitely knew who Barry was. Not just as Barry, but as the Flash. He even knew who I was," Naruto said. "We would get close, and he'd just pull away. We'd fight and he'd taunt us. This was just some sick game to him," Barry said. "You'll catch him. We'll help," Dr. Wells said. Dr. Wells, "No, this guy, his speed, it's beyond ours. Even combined he took us out like we were nothing. So, how can we even catch somebody that we can't keep up with?" Naruto asked. "The beautiful things about force fields is that they are impervious to speed. Now, we're almost finished fabricating the trap, and all that remains is for Detective West to procure the bait," Dr. Wells said. "I'm on it," Joe said as he left and Barry followed him. "Barry, why don't you stay here?" "No, Joe, today is not the day to tell me to stay behind," Barry said, pissed, and determined to take down the man in yellow. Joe and Dr. Wells shared looks of concern about Barry's attitude with this case. Joe left as Dr. Wells looked at Naruto, who was looking at his suit. "Everything okay, Naruto?" Dr. Wells asked. "I'm fine. Let's get finished with that trap. This speedster isn't getting away this time," Naruto said as they got to work finishing the trap. Cisco and Caitlin went out on something personal and it was hours before they came back. And by the time they did, Joe and Barry had come back with the tachyon device. They used one of the empty lab spaces in the lower floors to set up the tachyon device and the force field trap. "The tachyon device is in place," Cisco said. You think it'll work? Barry asked. It'll work, Cisco said as he left. So, how do we advertise to him that the prototype's here? Barry asked. We'll take care of that, Dr. Wells said as he crossed his arms. Barry nodded and looked at Joe, who was looking at him just like Dr. Wells. What's the problem? Barry asked. Look, Barry, me and Dr. Wells have spoken, and we think it would be best if you weren't here for this, Joe told him. What are you talking about? Barry asked. You're too close to this, Joe told him. Or maybe you're not close enough. If you hadn't been too scared and warned me that he was here weeks ago, I could have been prepared for this, Barry shouted. I think we can all appreciate Joe's concern for Iris, Barry, Dr. Wells said. Guys, Barry should be here. He deserves to be here. And if something goes wrong, I can't stop him by myself, Naruto said. That's why I have to be here. I'm the best chance at catching this guy, Barry shouted. Not right now, not in this state, Joe told him. This man stabbed my mother through the heart and sent my father to prison for it. This is my fight, Barry shouted. Not today, son, Joe said as Barry exhaled, grabbed his jacket, and left in a huff. I think you're making a mistake, Naruto told them as he grabbed his suit. Barry isn't in the right mindset for tonight, Naruto, Dr. Wells told him. Dr. Wells, I don't think Barry would ever be in the right mindset for facing him. That man killed his mother and sent his father to jail for it. He needs closure and justice for what happened, and not letting him help is making it worse, Naruto told them. We're protecting Barry. If he does help tonight, he may do something he'll regret for the rest of his life, Joe said. Like what? Kill him? Barry isn't that kind of person, Joe. He's the kindest person I know, next to Caitlin. He doesn't have it in him to be a killer. But what he does need is to be able to confront the man who ruined his life, Naruto said as he walked over to Cisco's station to get some high-calorie energy bars. Would you feel the same way if you were in his position? Dr. Wells asked as Naruto stopped. If you could meet the man who caused the accident, would you be so calm as you are now? I did meet the man who killed them at his trial when they put him in jail. I didn't try to kill him then, Naruto told them. And now? Joe asked. If I saw that man again, he'd still be alive, Naruto said as he grabbed his backpack. Just roughed up a bit. Or a lot. Naruto left to go train as Dr. Wells looked at him. And I believe you, Naruto, Dr. Wells said as he watched Naruto leave. Naruto was walking through Star Labs to go train when he saw Caitlin sitting down by the pipeline. Caitlin, what are you doing here? Naruto asked as he walked over and sat down next to her. He saw her looking at her engagement ring and she was on the verge of tears. Caitlin, seriously, what's wrong? Talk to me, Naruto said as she looked at him, doing her best to hold back tears. It's Ronnie. He's alive, and he's changed, Caitlin said as Naruto was shocked. How? Where's he been all this time? Naruto asked. I'm not sure, but he's a meta-human. He bursts into flames, and he doesn't remember anything, or me, Caitlin said as tears began falling from her eyes. Hey, we're gonna help him, Naruto told her. And do what? Lock him in the pipeline with all the other crazy meta-humans? Caitlin asked as she looked at her ring. I used to play this game in my head. What would I give up for just one more minute with him? My house, my career, the rest of my life. Today I finally got that minute. And I wish I hadn't. Seeing him like that, what he's become. Dear God, I just wish he had died that day. Caitlin began crying as Naruto got close to her and held her close. It's okay, Naruto said as she hugged him and cried her eyes out. Caitlin, I don't know what our future holds, but I make you this promise right now. I'm going to do everything within my power to bring Ronnie home to you. The man that you fell in love with has to be in there, you just have to hope, Naruto said as he hugged Caitlin and Caitlin hugged him tight. Line break XXXXX. It was time to spring the trap for the man in yellow. Joe, Eddie, and Eddie's special squad of officers were in the cortex with Dr. Wells, Naruto, Caitlin, and Cisco, who were watching the cameras in the trap room. Naruto had hidden everything in the cortex that related to the Flash and Impulse and sealed the case for their suits so no one would see them. It was late and they had been watching the camera for a while to see if the man in yellow would fall for the bait. "Are you certain this trap would work?" Eddie asked. "I've sent up at least 3 charges into open satellite. If anyone's looking for tachyonic particles, they'll know we got them," Cisco said as they kept watching the screen. They waited another 30 seconds when the camera showed a red lightning blur race into the room to take the tachyon matrix, but the force field came up and the man in yellow was trapped in a force field. He began speeding around the force field to try and get out, but he was stuck. "Oh my god," Caitlin said as Naruto glared at the screen, seeing the man they were after trapped like a rat. The man's body was still vibrating so they couldn't what he looked like, but he was there. "Let's see what we caught," Dr. Wells said as Joe, Eddie, and the officers moved to the trap room. Naruto got up to go, but Dr. Wells motioned him to stay. "Naruto, stay here, in case something goes wrong." "Right. Be careful," Naruto told him. "Always," Dr. Wells replied as he escorted Joe, Eddie, and the officers to the force field and the man in yellow. The officers and Dr. Wells entered the room with their weapons ready as they saw the man in yellow standing there in the force field. "Cisco, lights," Dr. Wells shouted over the intercom. "Sure thing, Dr. Wells," Cisco said as he turned on the lights in the room. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Naruto said as he watched the cameras. The lights in the force field room turned on and everyone got a good look at the man in yellow. Eddie was scared out of his mind, but he wouldn't admit that to anyone. Joe was glaring at the man while Dr. Wells was curious as to who he was. "Detective Thon, would you like to read him his rights?" Dr. Wells asked as Joe stepped forward. "Joe, what are you doing?" Eddie asked. "Getting some answers," Joe said as he walked up to the man in yellow. 14 years ago, you murdered Nora Allen. I want to know why." "Why?" The man in yellow completely ignored Joe and walked closer to the force field, looking at Dr. Wells. "Dr. Wells, we meet at last," the man in yellow said. "What do you want with the tachyonic particles?" Dr. Wells asked. "My goals are beyond your understanding," the man said. "Oh, I don't know, I'm a pretty smart guy. I knew you were exceptionally fast, so any trap we manufactured would have to be invisible. I knew your cells could repair themselves at extraordinary speeds, so you could withstand what the damage this is doing to your body right now," Dr. Wells said as Cisco noticed something going on. "The supercapacitors, the containment field is fluctuating. They need to get out of there now," Cisco said. "The reason I know all this is because your powers are almost exactly like those of the Flash," Dr. Wells said. "Oh, I'm not like the Flash at all. Some would say I'm the reverse," he said as Naruto, Caitlin, and Cisco saw their camera feed die and their system get hit with a virus. "Dr. Wells, you need to get out of there. Get out," Naruto shouted into the intercom as the man in yellow had somehow super sped out of the force field, grabbed Dr. Wells and began beating the holly hell out of him. "Cisco, turn off the barrier. He's got Wells," Joe shouted as Naruto's eyes flashed with lightning. He grabbed his suit and super sped into the force field room. "Naruto," Cisco shouted as Caitlin texted 911 to Barry. Impulse sped into the room and saw the man in yellow beating Dr. Wells, so he ran over to one of the capacitors and yanked the power cords, shutting off the force field. This temporarily got the man in yellow's attention as Naruto charged forward and tackled him away from Dr. Wells. Joe, Eddie, Dr. Wells, and the other officers saw Impulse try and fight the man in yellow, but it ended the same way with him getting his ass kicked again. The man in yellow knocked Impulse away before he grabbed the tachyon device and ran away. Impulse ran after him as Eddie looked around. "Find him," Eddie shouted as they looked around when they heard fighting and turned to see the man in yellow fighting Impulse by the door. They were blocking their only exit. Impulse threw out a barrage of speed punches, but the man in yellow blocked and dodged all of them. Impulse threw out another punch, and then a spin kick, but the man in yellow ducked under the kick and knocked Impulse's feet out from under him. He then grabbed Impulse by his neck and threw him at a wall. Impulse groaned in pain as the man in yellow looked at the officers. Impulse tried to stand up but grabbed his side in pain as Joe ran over to help him. "Don't move, or we will shoot," Eddie shouted. "No, get out," Impulse shouted as the man in yellow super sped around the officers, and killed them all by punching them in the throats or snapping their necks. The man then knocked Eddie's gun out of his hands and stared at him. Eddie waited to be killed as Joe pulled out his gun and fired. The man in yellow pushed Eddie out of the way, super sped to Joe and grabbed him by the neck, holding him against the wall. "I warned you not to hunt me," the man in yellow shouted as the Flash sped into the room, grabbed the man in yellow and ran outside. Joe breathed a sigh of relief as he was nearly killed before running over to Dr. Wells. Impulse grit his teeth before super speeding after the man in yellow to help the Flash. He ran through the building and saw the Flash and man in yellow fighting near the entrance, so he ran to help the Flash fight as the three traded blows. They ran so fast in a circle that they actually hovered in the air. They flew up, smashing through the glass ceiling as they hovered up and then fell to the ground. The man in yellow threw Impulse and Flash into cars as they were thrown with enough force to bend the metal. The man in yellow turned and saw Caitlin and Cisco, so he ran to them, but Flash and Impulse grabbed him. Which turned out to be a big mistake as he grabbed and twisted their arms and threw them on the ground. Impulse stood up and threw out speed punches, but the man in yellow blocked them all before kicking out one of Impulse's legs as he then grabbed a punch thrown by the Flash. The man in yellow bashed the Flash into Impulse before punching the Flash in the face multiple times and knocking him away. He grabbed Impulse by the back and threw him through the air and into a car as he then threw out a series of speed punches at the Flash. He grabbed the Flash by the neck and yanked his mask off. He kneed him in the face and stood over the Flash ready to lay out another series of speed punches when he was knocked away by a fire blast. The Flash and Impulse leaned up and saw it was a dirty and ragged-looking Ronnie with his head and hands on fire. The man in yellow stood up and looked at the Flash and Impulse. "Our race is not yet done. See you soon, boys," the man in yellow said as he ran away. Impulse groaned in pain as Cisco ran over to check on him as Caitlin ran up to Ronnie. "Don't look for me again," Ronnie said as he burst into flames and flew away. Line break XXXXX. Naruto and Barry recovered in Star Labs as Joe took Eddie back to CCPD as they had to explain what happened with the tachyonic particle device stolen and the death of those officers. Naruto finished resting up as he then walked over to where Caitlin and Cisco were fixing up Dr. Wells. "Dr. Wells, are you okay?" Naruto asked as he walked over, and Dr. Wells smiled. "I'm fine, Naruto. I should be asking you that question." Dr. Wells replied. "No, it should be me asking. You're not the one with accelerated healing." Naruto said. "Seriously, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Scrapes, bruises, nothing too serious that time won't fix. But you saved my life tonight, Naruto. You saved Detective West and Thon as well," Dr. Wells said. "But not the other officers. I should have stopped that reverse speedster," Naruto said as he sighed in frustration and ran his hand through his hair. "That wasn't your fault, Naruto. No one could have anticipated what happened tonight. We were all caught unaware. But we'll be ready next time," Dr. Wells said as Naruto nodded. "And next time he won't get away. How did he even grab you? I thought that force field would be able to contain a speedster," Naruto asked. "I've gone over the data a dozen times and I can't find out what happened. I must have missed something. I'm sorry," Cisco said. "It's not your fault, Cisco. But if you all feel the need to apologize for something, you might start with not telling me that Ronnie is still alive," Dr. Wells said as they all shared a guilty look. "I told Naruto and Cisco not to say anything. Once I saw what Ronnie had become, I needed time to see if I could make him whole again." "I'm sorry, I know you're mad," Caitlin said. "No, I don't know what I would have done differently in your situation," Dr. Wells said as he held her hand. "I know I made you a lot of promises. I know I've not been able to keep them all. But on my life, I promise you this, we will bring Ronnie home." Caitlin smiled as she finished patching up one of Dr. Wells' cuts. "Well, I think this was one depressing way to start the holidays. Cisco said as Naruto nodded. Kind of hard to get in the holiday spirit when something like this happens. Naruto said. Actually, I think it's something that we could all use. Joe invited us to his holiday party. Maybe a little eggnog and Christmas jolly can make this year end on something a little better than depressing. Caitlin suggested. I'm in. Naruto. Cisco asked as Naruto thought for a moment. Yeah, best thing to do is to move forward. But don't let me drink too much. I've still got some things I need to do at the shelter. Naruto said as they nodded. Dr. Wells, you coming? I'm not up to a party tonight, Naruto. But thank you. Give Detective West and Mr. Allen my holiday cheer. Dr. Wells said as Naruto nodded. Naruto helped Dr. Wells into his chair and he, Cisco, and Caitlin went to Joe's house for the holiday party. Iris and Eddie were there, and they were just waiting on Joe and Barry, who arrived about 10 minutes after they did. Merry Christmas, they all said. What are you guys doing here? Barry asked. I invited them, Joe said as Barry smiled. Where's Dr. Wells? He wasn't feeling up to a party tonight, but he sends his holiday cheer. Naruto said as Joe nodded. Eggnog. Yeah, let's do it. Joe said as he and Naruto got some of Grandma Esther's eggnog and it was good. Naruto grabbed an extra cup and handed it to Caitlin as Cisco walked over to Joe. Hey, Joe, I saw something weird tonight. Cisco told him. Yeah, Cisco, I saw it too. Joe replied. No, I mean, when the Flash, Impulse and the man in yellow were going full-on bumper cars on each other, I was watching the electricity coming off of them, yellow, red, and white electricity. When Barry was a kid, he said he saw red and yellow lightning in his house the night his mother died. Cisco said as Joe realized what Cisco was implying. There were two of them. Joe said as Cisco nodded. The man in yellow may have killed Barry's mother, but there was another speedster there that night. Cisco said as Joe nodded. Dad, it's time, Iris said as Joe walked over and grabbed the angel. Everyone got up as Joe attached and lit up the angel, finishing the Christmas tree, and for the night, things were starting to look up. Naruto smiled as he saw all his new friends he had made, his new family. Things were looking up and Naruto seemed ready to move past what happened to his parents and get on with his life, not knowing that someone was about to drudge it back up again. At one of the isolated wings of Iron Heights was the cell of one Andrew Hayes, the man who was charged with drunk driving, destruction of public property, reckless endangerment, 1 count of attempted manslaughter and 2 counts of manslaughter. He was the man who caused the accident that killed Naruto's parents. He was serving a 30-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 20 years. He was in his cell, finishing a letter that would be sent to the DA for something important. Okay, if you have letters, please get them ready. One of the guards shouted as Hayes finished his letter and handed it to one of the guards. Make sure that gets to the DA. It's important, Hayes said as the guard just looked at him. Whatever, Hayes, the guard said as he took the letter and put it with the pile of letters that would be going out. Another one of the guards saw Hayes' letter and grabbed it when no one was looking. He opened it and read the contents before walking away and throwing it in the garbage. He took out his phone and dialed a blocked number. Yeah, it's me. It seems that Hayes is having a little remorse about the deal that was struck. Let the boss know, the guard said as he hung up. Back at Star Labs, Dr. Wells entered the secret room where he was monitoring the Flash and Impulse's progress as well as the article from the future. He grabbed something in his pocket and took it out to reveal a gold ring with a lightning bolt symbol. He put it on the middle finger of his left hand and walked over to the far wall. He touched it to the wall and the wall opened up to reveal a futuristic display for a mannequin. The mannequin had nothing on it, but there was a slot for a small circle to be inserted. Dr. Wells inserted his ring into the slot and turned his hand to the left, and suddenly, a suit appeared on the mannequin, the suit of the Reverse Flash. Dr. Wells picked up the tachyonic device, which was already retrofitted to a tachyon matrix, and attached it to his suit, and the tachyonic particles began energizing the suit with energy. Dr. Wells smiled as he saw his suit absorbing the tachyonic energy that would make him even faster than he already was. Merry Christmas. Dr. Wells said in the Reverse Flash voice.